Hey everybody, welcome back to the Muscle Intelligence Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Pakulski. Today we sit down with Alex Kikel, a gentleman who's been taking the internets by storm. An incredible wealth of information. This is one of the longest podcasts I've ever recorded because Alex has so much information in that giant brain that he educates us on everything from peptides to mitochondrial function to his thought processes around longevity, mTOR, AMPK. We even get into his training thoughts a little bit. And this podcast is mind-blowing. And there's a lot of stuff in here that Alex says that, to be honest, I haven't fact-checked. You're going to have to take it, listen to it, do your own research, but there's a lot of value to be garnered in this podcast. Now, I can't say that everything in this podcast is valid. I don't know for sure that some of the things that Alex is saying are clinically proven because he's often working outside of the lines of what is clinical practice or what is FDA approved or what has PubMed verified studies behind it. But Alex is working with some of the most remarkable athletes and the most remarkable people in the world, and he's working with them over and over and over, and I verified this. So Alex is a very reliable source, a very trusted, credible source to these people and getting them remarkable results. So I do not recommend everything Alex says for you to use for yourself, but I do recommend that you listen very carefully and learn to explore the things that he's saying as possible tools for you. Again, this is not advice. This is not medical advice. I strongly suggest you listen carefully, take an unbelievable amount of wisdom away from Alex because he's a very, very sharp, very, very smart man. But again, I don't want to say that everything that he says has been verified by me because it's not. And I can't always do that with a lot of my guests, but I know there's an unbelievable amount of wisdom here. And you may be able to garner 1, 2, or as many as 10 incredible key insights and wisdom you can take away to apply to transforming your life. Enjoy the podcast with Alex Kikel. Mr. Alex Kikel joins us today. Where are you coming from?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah, that's right. What city?
An hour outside of Pittsburgh.
Oh, we talked about this because my son's the world's biggest Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming in. And, I've been watching your stuff for a little while now, and I'm very grateful to dig into what will soon be our longest podcast, I think.
Yeah, hopefully. I got a big enough shaker cup, so I'm good to go.
Ready to go.
Hypo.
Where'd you get your start? Other than after Chipotle, let's talk about where'd you get your start in the health and fitness space? Like, what does that look like for you?
Started off in college, or actually high school rather, let's back up. Playing lacrosse, got a concussion. Before that, I was going to go, had a full scholarship. Like I was going to just live the college lacrosse life, did amateur boxing at the time, got that concussion. And like every other athlete, you're like, that's my life. That's my world. And then I wake up 6 months later. So I don't remember. I remember it now. I had to regrow some neurons and everything. But I had the concussion on the field, continued to play, scored a goal, and then just collapsed. Then the next thing I remember after falling and hitting the ground before all that, the next thing I wake up and I'm like feeling in bed. And I'm like, why are my ribs sticking out? Because I wasn't big, but I was pretty muscular. And I like stumble because I get out of bed and my legs were like weak. And I stumbled to the bathroom. I look in the bathroom and I had a little 5 o'clock shadow, which in high school is a big deal, and I started crying. I was like, what the F happened? Like, I knew a lot of time passed, but I was like, where'd my life go? What happened? And then parents told me, and that kind of got me into, okay, I have to rebuild my body and also my brain, right? So that got me kind of into nutrition dietetics and then led me into bodybuilding. So did the dietetics thing, originally shadowed the dietitian for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Didn't really like the constraints you have as a dietitian at that level. It was almost like, this might have also been her approach, but I didn't like how it was like meal plan and you can choose to have them follow or not follow it. It's kind of up to them. I was kind of like, I really want to be like really in depth.
That's pro sports, right?
Exactly, right? And so I was kind of like, okay, got out of that, transitioned, ended up getting my master's in performance enhancement, injury prevention. College only taught me how to find information.
Performance enhancement, injury management?
Yeah, injury prevention.
Prevention.
Yeah,
where'd you go?
That's my master's. That was California University of Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
And all those years, it taught me how to find education. Nothing from there I learned I applied to today, but being able to find information, I think that was invaluable. So at that time, I was posting on...
Learning how to learn.
Exactly. And then now it's funny, we'll get to it later on, but learning how to unlearn, which is massive.
Yeah. I think context, right? So I don't know if I've unlearned stuff, but I think you sort of evolve past learning. And for me anyways, I'm sure you may have a different thought, but like the stuff I learned in college, same idea. I'm like, I don't use any of it now. I think it was all trying to, I don't know if it's forget, but like recognize that they're learning in this little contained box that fits their paradigm. And I'm like, I want to live outside of the box, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So you started with performance in college? Were you working with athletes back then?
I was posted on the bodybuilding.com forums. I was
Nice.
Natural
What year was
Pursuit
that?
back on the day.
When you're like, that's probably when I was on their site.
That was way that. So Jansen was on there.
Nice. So that was even after I was competing.
Yeah, I think it was after that.
Yeah. What year are we talking?
Oh man,
I don't know. Bodybuilding.com.
Can't even. Once you have kids, the years kind of all blend together. So back in the college days, whenever that was, right? But it was cool because I just started picking up and working with bodybuilders and powerlifters and strongmen. Got a lot of success. And then it was kind of like people liked what I would post.
What does working with them mean at that level?
So training, nutrition, supplementation, pharmacology, like kind of the basic stuff, how you get into coaching.
And where'd you get the background? Was this from university stuff or were you a self-learner at the time?
Just self-learning. I was reading everything I could. So I'd go to the library because I didn't like reading research papers online. I was like, I'd rather have a book in front of me and feel it. I just had that natural inkling to go.
You mean before the internet, there was things called books?
Right. I mean, exactly.
Encyclopedias.
Yeah, now things just get whispered into your ear.
Sure,
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
But it was like I would just learn and read everything. And then I would read all the new research which would come out online. And I'd apply it. It wouldn't work. I was like, okay, this research site doesn't mean anything because I applied it 50 times. It didn't work. And then I applied the context to it, like you were saying. I was like, oh, now that makes sense. In this demographic, it worked. This demographic, it didn't. So then it kind of started to evolve from there because athletes would say, hey, like my mother has heart failure or kidney failure or liver failure, some kind of organ-based problem. Like, they're like, do you know what to do? Can you help me? I was like, I've never done it before. I'm sure I could figure it out. So I thought it was fun. It was like kind of a new challenge.
So someone would give you a challenge and you'd go to work trying to solve the problem?
Pretty much, yeah. And it just kind of evolved from there. And it kept growing in the dysfunctional and athletic world so much in general population. And then eventually there was one individual, older black lady, super, super nice. She had a failing liver, failing kidneys. She was a mess, right? Healed her body up, got everything back. She was back to walking again, talking, happy, everything. And she goes, you should talk to my son. He's a pretty good athlete. It's like the classic mom undersell, right? And so she ends up connecting me. And at that time, he was one of the best NBA players in the world. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I don't even follow the NBA that much. I knew who that was. And so then we started talking. And then from there, it was word of mouth. From the NBA to the NFL to the NHL to
So
UFC.
what'd you do with that lady? Walk me through the protocol. So she had all these failures. What did it look like?
Ooh, you're going to test my memory bank. I've looked at protocol in 10 years. So let me see. So in my head, I have an index. I go into that index. I pull it out. I open the file. Deidre started off with hepatomegaly and liver failure. Back then, we start with Sventnorm, so the liver bioregulator.
Okay.
We're just trying to turn on epigenetic expression. If I remember correctly as well, there was a high amount of like the HSCRPs, interleukin-6s, so a decent amount of, at that time, it was not injectable vitamin C glutathione, but just a little bit of over-the-counter liposomal glutathione and vitamin C. For the renal failure, if I remember correctly, we were dosing a ton of astragalus. That was like the big driver to drive the mRNA resynthesis of like the kidney, the filter of the actual kidneys. And at that time, we were taking a ton of curcumin. So like as I'm slowly coming through learning these things, then we started to apply some different therapies because we're seeing good results, but not what I wanted to see.
So how do you think about that? Like someone comes to you and go, I got to fix this. What's your order? What's your process of thinking? Because like you can go right after supplements, but there's obviously multiple levels of organization and healing, right?
Kind of just like life, kind of just like consciousness, bottom up and top down. You have to have both. Top has to equal bottom, bottom has to equal top. So I would literally start off with saying, okay, what's the main problem we have now? Not the diagnosis. What are the side effects you have right now, right? Whether it be blood pressure, if it was a kidney problem. And then look downstream from there at the lowest subcellular level and go, okay, I'm going to attack it, not in the middle, because the middle doesn't help anyone. That's where like traditional medicine goes, right? You have a diagnosis of a failed kidney, I'm going to attack the failed kidney versus going super upstream and going, okay, what side effect is that kidney causing? Fix that. And then subcellular, going after the mitochondria of the kidneys, going after the cells that communicate to the kidneys, and that meets in the middle. So you're almost band-aiding the side effect while fixing the real underlying problem. So that long-term, you remove the band-aid and the problem's gone.
So we're trying to heal mitochondrial function. You're just going after trying to heal kidney function going after mitochondria.
Pretty much. It wasn't only that, but it was cell-to-cell communication.
Sure.
So I didn't know this at the time, but I always had a good amount of intuition. Like, I don't know why, I just had that gut feeling.
Sure.
Like, even posting on the forums, like my wife, well, dating back then, she's like, why are you wasting 4 hours a day posting on the forums? I was like, I don't know. I just think it's a good idea. Like, I just know this is what I'm supposed to do. I just trusted my gut. And so in the whole kidney-based world, specifically looking at the cell. So we have mitochondria, we have the cells. If you can imagine cells with these cables in between them. Those are those tunneling nanotubules, right? Go into those tunneling nanotubules, there's more cables. Go into those, there's more cables. See this massive network. Now, again, at that time, I didn't know this.
This is kidney specific?
No, this
All
is
cells?
globally specific.
Yep.
It's also so global to the universe because out in space, connecting stars and connecting
Sure.
galaxies are all of these actual quantum tunnels. Same thing with neurons and our actual brain cells. So actual neurons are connected by these actual tunnels. So everything's interconnected. So I didn't realize that they're transporting electrons or they're transporting whatever, right? You can transport mitochondria along those cells. So again, I didn't know this at the time, but back with her, I was like, okay, mitochondria functional is not that good. Mitochondria is not going where we want it to because energy was low. She was almost exhibiting what I'd call now as like a hyperpolarization or overspinning, where she was wired and tired, but she also had so much damage. She had so much inflammation building up. So like, okay, mitochondria function is not that good. We got to fix that. But I don't think it's being transported to the right areas because once you have a damaged cell, and healthy cell over here, this healthy cell via those tunnels will send healthy mitochondria down in order to go to that area and fix the area and then drive biogenesis. So it could drive biogenesis and make more new mitochondria there or there, depending on where the problem's at and how the body can allocate that. Now you use an SMS cell or a stem cell or an exosome, and it can do that whole process efficiently. So you hyperpolarize mitochondria, then transport all those mitochondria with one of those therapies. But back then it was kind of like, okay, how do I get cells to communicate? And I'm like, okay, back then, I can't remember the researcher's name. I'm not that good, but that specific, all the research at that time was looking at phosphatidylcholine, right? To release, and really the plasma membrane and slowly getting that release of acetylcholine bodies, just choline to the body, right? But I'm like, it's not quite that simple because there's phosphatidylserine, there's the natural phosphoglycolipids that actually make up that cell membrane. So I can't get to that with a fish oil or krill oil. I stumbled upon something called NT factor, and that's a natural glycophospholipid replacement therapy. So it's literally what your cell membranes are made up of. So to me, I was like, oh, wow, okay. Brought that into her and then later into the cancer community because it helps to heal cells a lot. So
It's called NT what?
NT factor.
That's available readily?
ntfactor.com. Yep.
Okay, interesting.
It's a little scooper. You do 1 scoop per day if you just want to be healthy long term. Then as you have more dysfunction, you can work it up from there. Don't put it in water. It doesn't taste that good. You kind of shoot it in the back of your mouth, and it's kind of buttery, depending on what kind of taste receptors you have in your mouth. I like the flavor. Some people don't, but super simple, probably the best. Like, if you look at one thing for like plasma membrane health, that's probably the best one out there. No one talks about it. It's super affordable too.
Interesting. So I'm presuming Deirdre had behavioral challenges. She didn't get there by accident. Giving her a few supplements, I'm guessing, isn't going to change behavior. Are you also helping these people with, like, how do you get her to change behavior?
Yeah, so that was an interesting one because she was in her late 50s, late 50s. She wasn't 60 yet. And if I'm recalling correctly, the biggest thing I wanted her to do was take a walk outside, go to the end of the street, stop sign. It was literally, she was like at the end of the block, it was like 20 feet. I was like, just do that every day for a week. Like, that's all I want you to do. Don't stop drinking your pop. Don't start drinking your alcohol. Like, just do that, right? And then from there, we slowly made that stop sign to the next stop sign and the next stop sign. So as we changed that, it's like, okay, let's have 1 less beer per day, or let's have 1 less Pepsi per day. We'd slowly work that out. Then, okay, after a couple months, you got some leeway, or you got some real snowballs rolling, right? You got some momentum. Then we go ahead and we can do something on the water side of things. And at this time in my career, I didn't quite understand structured water, but I understood the potential water had as the communication system to carry. So we talked about those nanotubules.
Yeah.
It carries the mitochondria into the cell. It carries communication. It carries signals. And so back then, I was having them actually just set up like their own kind of, I'd have them put rocks basically. Get at least rocks, clean them off, put them in a cup and cut a hole out of the bottom, and we would structure it so that the rocks would stay in there, basically have a little hole at the bottom, pour your water through it so it'd go through and come out the bottom. So that you'd have that left and right spin, you would pull apart those actual hydrogen oxygen atoms and you would create a charge because the whole thing is not explosive physics, it's implosion-based physics, it's pulling it back together. So we made our own homemade water structuring device, basically. And we started seeing some pretty cool results. And that was very, primitive, but it worked. And we started getting more sun exposure and all those basic things, but it was a slow process. But for a lot of those people, it is. Like you said, it's not just the supplement, it's breaking those bad habits and then slowly introducing things. And at that time, I was not doing anything like the non-coherent EMF side of things. I wasn't doing a ton of peptides. It was a slow learning process for me to run the problems, not be able to solve them, find new tools, implement them, collect data, put it in my little chart, and then go back to the next person.
Hey, everybody, a quick message from our sponsor from today's podcast. Transcriptions is bringing us the highest quality methylene blue on the market. Now, hear me out and why you may want to consider adding methylene blue into your optimization protocol. So what methylene blue is doing is it's actually increasing complex 4 of the mitochondrial electron transport chain. What does that mean? It's actually going to increase energy production at its base level. It improves memory consolidation. Some people are using it for longevity protocols because it can increase markers of mitochondrial biogenesis. Some people are seeing incredible benefits for overall longevity markers like decreasing inflammation and potentially increasing memory. So as someone who is interested in brain health and energy production as I age, methylene blue has become a non-negotiable part of my weekly routine. How do I use it? About 3 times a week in the afternoon. I'll try between 4 and 8 milligrams, not necessarily more than that. 8 seems to be a sweet spot for me. 4 is if I just need a little bit of a boost or I want to feel a little bit better. And I see unbelievable cognitive benefits and energy benefits without any type of crash and certainly without something that's going to keep me out for extended periods of time. So my general protocol is about between 12 and 2 in the afternoon. I'll take between 4 and 8 milligrams, and the benefit I see personally is remarkable. Now, it's true that methylene blue was a textile dye and even something they use for aquariums. However, the research at this point is irrefutable. There's so many unbelievable benefits to using methylene blue it's actually being used for malaria to decrease sepsis, which is like sort of this toxic shock in the body of infection. And if it's doing things at that level to heal the inside of our systems, the benefits are tremendous. There's also recent research showing incredible synergy when you take it when you're going into red light. And with the rampant use of red light or even being out in the sun, adding methylene blue can have increased benefits just from sun exposure and red light. So to take advantage of this incredible deal from our remarkable sponsors, Transcriptions, head over to transcriptions.com/muscle and get hooked up with the highest quality methylene blue on the market. Do not buy this stuff from random people on Amazon because it literally is a textile dye. You're getting super low quality stuff. Transcriptions has gone out and curated third-party tested pharmaceutical grade methylene blue. If you're going to try it, put the best in your body. You got to care what goes into your body because you only get one. Take care of it. Head over to transcriptions.com/muscle. Talk about structured water. What's that doing in a healing circumstance?
It's cool. So in nature, when water is coming down through the rocks and the streams, it's hitting those rocks, it's picking up the different minerals. It's also then creating that left and right spin like we talked about. What that spin does as it's hitting the rocks, it's creating a vortex and it folds in over itself. If you look at like mathematics, sacred geometry, basic things like that, you know a 90-degree angle, basically energy hits it, kind of gets absorbed. 60-degree angle hits it, it folds over. That's the same structure of a cancer cell versus a healthy cell. A cancer cell has a 90-degree angle, right? It's dysfunctional. A healthy cell has a 60-degree angle. It's healthier, it folds over itself.
What angle on a cell? I'm not picking up what you're putting down.
So if you would actually like look at the cells, look at the angulature of them, you would see them more 90.
So circular cell is
Correct.
turning into a 90-degree angle?
You're looking inward to the cell.
Okay.
So intracellularly, you're seeing the substructures.
Got it.
So this is where you get into the tubules and all that kind of fun stuff and like like what a cell really is, right? The cool thing about that is water is the same. If you get city water and you freeze it, put it under like the crystallography and look at the actual microscopes, you'll see it's 90-degree angles. It looks broken, it looks damaged, it looks gross.
Totally.
Healthy water, 60-degree angles.
Crystals.
So the same thing actually happens. So in nature, it's creating that spin, fixing the angulature, and now you have water that can carry information. So what you put into that water in nature, it's perfect, right? Because it's picking up on all the environmental magnetism, all those energies, right? It's picking up on all the minerals in the rocks, and then eventually you drink it at the bottom. Now that's water from before, not today. The geoengineering going on with spraying of aluminum in the skies, that's why they have the Alzheimer, what do they call them? Dementia bees, right? You see bees that they forget how to go back to their hive.
Really?
Yeah, because they're
Is that
getting
what they're
aluminum.
spraying aluminum?
I mean, a ton of other stuff in there as well.
Sure.
Yeah, a good amount of aluminum. Because you can actually, certain people, like you can test the tile on top of your roof, and you can see there's a bunch of aluminum that shouldn't be there. Mount Shasta, actually, which should be, right, the best water in the world, they're finding aluminum all over there in the trees.
What do I know, Mount Shasta? Where's that?
I have no idea. Mount Shasta,
Huh.
wherever that's at. We were talking beforehand.
California.
There you go. I'm bad with
I've
geography.
heard it. I think I've been there.
I
I've actually
yeah?
climbed it. I think I've been there, yeah, actually.
Yeah, never asked about geography. I'm bad about that. I know
Right.
the names, but like location. Like Florida to me is Florida.
Right.
And then I found out that wasn't the case when I tried to hang out with you a couple weeks ago.
Right. Same spot.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
Florida.
So why would a listener consider adding structured water to their plan?
So if you can...
Should everyone or only when they're ill?
Everyone. Yeah. So if you can imagine getting 10% more out of everything you do, this is one of those players. So if you have better communication in your body for like your bodybuilders, right? What happens if you have better communication? You can deliver more
Because of
nutrients.
why? Because of these folding
Correct. Yeah. So when you have
cells.
that angulature of the water, it can carry information. And information is kind of like the generic way of saying everything. Nutrients, mitochondria, like everything that tells a cell how to function, whether it's anabolism.
How do you know this? Is there research on this?
Oh, tons. Yeah, this goes back to Victor Schauberger. This is today there is a good amount of research being done till Natural Action has a lot of crystallography research. But more Jared Pollock, he's an amazing guy. I think
Amazing,
super
yeah.
brilliant,
Seen it on
right?
podcast.
Yeah, he's on the easy water
Sure.
H3O2, and to me, that's what the research is proving, right? Which is awesome. There's 5 more steps after that, but our research isn't there yet. So it's kind of like this is the building process that finally gets us there. But kind of that end result is like looking at plasma, ether in the universe, which is kind of that's going to be a long time before we figure that out, But that's kind of the building process, and he's doing a lot of good.
Tell me
work
what that
there.
means. There's 5 steps after.
So if we understand right now H3O2 structured water, right? All the water we're consuming is mainly coming from our pipes, from the sink, from the faucet. Even if it's RO'd, you're pulling stuff out, you're not putting things in. Even if you put electrolytes into it and minerals into it, it's not structured. So you're still replacing some, but it's not coming into your body structured. So when the water is coming already damaged, the first thing it has to do, this is where you go to mitochondria, look at the ATPase. So as you are skipping electrons across the electron transport chain, gets the ATPase, it spins. As it creates that spin and pops out some ATP, it's also pushing out these hydrogens. Those hydrogens not only fuse with oxygens in that outer membrane, but also come out of that ATPase. So our cells, mitochondria, have to spend more time and energy making the water structured so it's viable to our system. So if you can imagine wasting an extra, 208, like a random number, 208 ATP every day on just structuring the water in your body versus recovering versus driving beta oxidation for fat loss. So it just makes everything more efficient. And it's not going to be the game changer like 100%. That's that 10% baseline player that over time, to me, makes some of the biggest differences.
How are you consuming structured water? You have a structure on your house, or what's your consumption?
So I prefer Natural Actions devices. They have a ton of different ones depending on your price.
That's a company, Natural Action?
Yes, actually, this is their first prototype. In here, there's actually super
Like rocks?
Yeah. Well, basically, so they actually have carbon 60, so lipofluorine buckyballs.
Yep.
They're structured in there, so the water will go 360 spin over, create that charge, and also pull information into it. In the carbon 60, there's all the beneficial nutrients and things in there, so it's putting that into the water. In there, though, I can't pull it out because it's filled with a bunch of electrolytes and things like that that'll make my hands sticky. But they have it, and the structure of it is just like, well, close enough, almost just like the ATPase of mitochondria, where there's changing of polarities at every single level. So you're changing the gradients, you're changing the charge, and you have a more structured, better version of water. And it's tough because people call it living water, revitalized water, structured water, H3O2, exclusion zone water. Like there's all these names. And although they're technically different on paper, I think they're basically the same. Like although there's subtle differences, we're talking about putting water back in its natural state so that everything else just functions that much better.
Yeah, Gerald Pollack's, oversimplification, but he basically said this water will function to maintain electrical charge in the cells. It's like proton gradients, right? Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. It's something that I've been very aware of. So I've used I don't know if you've ever tried the technology called the NanoV. Have you tried NanoV?
Yes. Yeah, I like that.
You like it? Have you tried it? Yeah. It's one of those things that like, I know what they're saying it does. And I can't definitely say that it does what they say it's going to do, but I could say definitively that I feel a difference. And like better sleep, better breathing, lower resting heart rate, better recovery, even better brain function, just breathing this water vapor. And I'm like, is it actually doing it? I'm like, could be placebo, but I know this stuff works. And like, I've given this to a lot of people who just love it.
Right.
Shout out to Rowena, our friend over at Nanotubes. Do you know Rowena?
Dude, I
She's
don't
been
know
on the
her.
podcast. Yeah.
So it's really cool if you look at the mitochondria in cerebral tissue, neurological tissue, because if you're improving that function in the brain specifically, what happens? You fold memories more efficiently. You can clear different acetyl accumulations that'll cause like basically insulin resistance in the brain. Remember, your brain releases its own type of insulin as well, so it improves that. It improves neuronal acetylcholine release. Like all of those therapies in the whole structured water world in the NanoV is an amazing therapy.
Is it just a matter of increasing hydration? Like, is the structured water going to increase our ability to use this water because of the exclusion zone?
Correct.
So it's really just like getting water that your body can actually use.
Yeah, exactly. Versus you having to take it in and then biotransform it yourself. So you're just wasting energy versus conserving it and allowing it to have a better function. at the end of the day.
Makes sense. So you said there's 5 stages after this exclusion zone. How do you know that, and what are those stages?
So it's not a hard, fast 5.
It's just what you're thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you kind of look at where we're at right now in like the water research world, and again, Jared Palkman is really leading the charge. The problem about the next couple steps is that we're really limited by our technology.
Yeah, what does that mean? Like when you say next 5 steps to what? Like I'm not sure. Like I get exclusion zone. I'm sure. Like where are we going?
I gotcha. So ever hear about like the ether?
Sure.
Okay. So the energy that surrounds all of us, that's basically within that quantum field, right? So this is where we get the quantum mechanics a little bit. We're looking at the energy that surrounds all of us, connects the universe and everything. If you look at how that's theorized to be, really like Tesla's work and things like that, you'll see that it's basically the same thing as structured water in our bodies, but different densities.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So you start to see, okay, there's that connection. I don't think it's that weak because you start to see the connection. And this, I didn't want to go into the beginning because you said not too microscopic, but kind of, I'll zoom in at the macroscopic. If you look at the universe and how the Earth, right? As the sun is hitting the Earth, iron, quartz spins, right? Has its axis, has its polarity. As it's spinning, it creates its own electromagnetic fields around it, right? That's structuring the water on Earth and on the planet. We see the same thing happening in the cells of our body, where the cells are spinning, creating their own electromagnetic field and creating their own structured water. So the same thing happens to our bodies, to the Earth, and out in space. And so that's where I zoom out to the macroscopic of the ether, right? Or plasma, depending on how you want to call it and what you're using it. People have done this in the race engine-based world a lot. We'll do different fuel efficiency-based tests, and they can get 100 miles to the gallon by switching over to something like a water-based fuel. Now, that's a tough conversation because obviously those people are silenced pretty quick.
Yeah.
So most people, it's like, I don't want to say the crazy guy in the woods, but I know like 7 of those guys where it's like you have one number, you talk to them once a month.
Man, those guys are, I know, well, probably not as many as you, but I know a few of those guys who are like doing remarkable stuff.
Yeah, they have like actual Tesla black boxes, like the actual free energy. And it's kind of like they're so afraid to talk about it because they would get silenced or, worse,
Put in jail, yeah.
Yeah, so.
So exclusion zone for the listener is this outer membrane, if you will, of water that the water literally pushes these electrons to the outside, and you get this charge outside of the water. So this is a natural process that we know happens in water, happens in the body, your body creates it, and it also happens in structured water. So this almost like that's what they're calling the exclusion zone or structured water. So what you're saying is there's just a correlation there with that also happening in the body at different density. Makes total sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then if you just look at like protons and electrons, simple things, right? Positive versus negative ion emissions, right? Our phones are giving all these positive ion emissions. The cells in our body don't like those.
Right.
They don't. They make them incoherent. Versus if you look at like what's coming off the sun, right? Or off the earth, a fruit, an antioxidant. It's an electron donation. Same thing happens, but it's causing coherence. Coherence is whenever a cell is healthy and functional. And a lot of our society today is just massively incoherent. So for the athletes out there, why this matters is, and by the way, this is the best athletes in the world are focusing on these things, the people in the NFL, people making the millions and millions, right?
Yep.
Because these things make a big difference. Because if you can be slightly more efficient and kind of negate the damage being done from today's society, you become a better athlete, healthier, everything.
So what I'm hearing is, and this is how I think of performance and healing, I always think of like 3 different levels, and I'd love for you to add to this. So everyone thinks in terms of biology, which is like systems, organ systems, tissues. On top of that, we have chemistry, which is, like molecules and hormones. On top of that, we have physics. And I think it literally stacks. And so it sounds like this is just sort of bridging where most people stop at chemistry. This is bridging into the physics and biophysics and vibrations.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, you're going to love this. Okay. Remember I texted that picture of the Metformin?
Yeah.
So this will bridge that, right? If you look at Metformin's dose response that needs to occur to actually inhibit complex 1 of the electron transport chain, it needs to be about like a millimolar of concentration of drug, right? If you look at any of the research done kinetically, it really only by like 1 to 2 grams of metformin, that's a pretty average dose, right? Even with diabetics, maybe 3, that's only causing 10 to 40 micromolars. So you are way off of causing any inhibition of complex 1. The reason why that matters is because where do the benefits of metformin really lie? It's more the superoxide dismutase than the complex 4 changes. Let me backtrack, bringing it back to what we're talking about. You need to look at the whole quantum electronic equation. So if you look at the electronic cloud, the pi electronic cloud around metformin, right? So it's electronic structure. What you start to see is this electron cloud is large, right? Why that matters is because, and backtrack one more time, we have to look at mitochondrial membrane potential, where there's delta, psi, and M. So you have those symbols that dictate how mitochondria is healthy. Delta is the difference, psi is the wave function. The wave function will tell you everything from an electronic standpoint, the structure and the stability, that determines a drug's potential. So this is more quantum mechanics looking at the drug and its electrons, right? Going back to the pi electron cloud, it's so large and its interaction has an affinity for intra-mitochondrial superoxide dismutase and complex 4. So it actually goes to those areas, drives them and heals them and causes more intramitochondrial superoxide dismutase release. So not only do we not have the complex 1, like true inhibition, you have some modulation, obviously, that's part of how it works. You don't have inhibition over there. But then if you look at the quantum mechanics side of things, which is the step above that you're talking about, you see that pi electron cloud and its interactions. And that's what's causing all the positive changes with superoxide dismutase and the complex 4. So then you start to dig into, okay, if metformin can do that, what else it's doing? And that's, you go down the whole list of all the other cascades. But to me, it kind of starts with the subcellular, like the lowest, like talk about the lowest level, which is really protons, well, below those, but we'll stay with the subatomic particle, those protons, electrons. And that tells you so much more about a drug, a supplement, really anything.
So all that to say,
Yeah, sorry, that's a lot.
I picked up 10% of what you said there. All that to say that you're a fan of metformin.
For the right person, right? Everything
And
is personal.
I hate it. I feel terrible on it.
I can't take it. I used to take it when I was younger, though, when I was perfect. But metabolism will change over the years. Certain people get more acromancy in the gut. They'll have more positive.
From metformin.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
They'll have some positive changes in the gut microbiome. Other people, all negative. They won't be able to handle the diarrhea, like the traditional, metformin diarrhea.
I'm pretty in tune with my body. I can like feel almost like dryness of my mitochondria. Like it's not my skin. It feels like it's like my cells are drying out.
And that's usually the overdriver on AMPK. That'll drive that process. And that's where like every drug, it can be as amazing as you want on paper, but if you apply it and it doesn't work, there's always the people that don't respond well to it.
I want to take a quick break and thank our sponsors, Troscriptions, the funny looking blue tongue that you see me walking around with on social media. This is what it's about. And I trust Troscriptions to give me accurate dosing that I can titrate up, start low and move high to find the exact dose that works for me. The challenge I see with things like droppers is nobody has any idea what dose you're using. Personally, I started at 4 milligrams a day and I didn't notice much benefit. I went to 8 milligrams a day and I felt like I hit my sweet spot. And the way I use methylene blue personally is literally just as a tool. It's not something I use every day. It's something I probably use 2 or 3 times a week when I need that extra boost of energy. Maybe I didn't sleep enough the night before. Maybe the afternoon is being really demanding and I want to have that extra bit of focus, that extra bit of energy, that extra bit of demand where I can extract the most of my day. Ladies and gentlemen, Troscriptions is an incredible tool that I highly suggest you put into your tool belt, into your medicine cabinet, and into your gym bag. If you're someone who wants to optimize the way you look, feel, and perform, head over to Troscriptions.com. Use the code MUSCLE for 10% off at checkout. Again, Troscriptions.com/muscle, or you can use the code MUSCLE at checkout. Talk to me about mTOR and AMPK because I think a lot of the audience is aspiring to understand the dynamic between mTOR and AMPK. I'm sure we could spend 6 hours talking about it. But as a bodybuilder, you're focused on like how much can I drive mTOR because I want to retain as much tissue as I can. Yep. For longevity, I believe, and you can tell me if this is your stance also, it's about dynamically balancing mTOR and AMPK. And balance can be, obviously a moving target. Sometimes we can push this one, sometimes we can push that one. But I'd love to hear your sort of overall perspective on mTOR AMPK. Again, contextually, let's say the audience is like, we have 50% of people who want to build muscle, 50% of people who want to live long. How should we start thinking about mTOR and AMPK? And how are you looking at genetic considerations?
So I think that it should be more of a balance for both demographics, but at the right time. So in the bodybuilder, hypertrophy crowd, athletic crowd, you want to push mTOR hard, right? When you're driving catabolism in the gym, whenever you're doing, it'll depend on the phase of training and the androgen load and things like that involved, but you will be pushing mTOR pretty hard until you don't want to. Once you want to drive the recovery aspect, so AMPK has to precede mTOR, catabolism has to precede anabolism. You're trying to follow that cycle.
Tell me what that means. It has to precede it.
So we are trying to induce a stressor in order to cause an adaptation.
Got it.
So when you're training, you are only focused. I mean, technically, it's a catabolic event, right? But in the reality, you should be focused on anabolism, right? Even though it is
in training.
Correct. Yeah, because it's catabolic, obviously, right? Having some AMPK being fluxed, but the whole process is to flux nitrogen so hard post-workout. Get all that nitrogen and glucose, everything stored intramuscularly. So what I like to do is whenever you're outside of that workout window, maybe 3 hours before, 3 hours after, outside of that, that's more of an AMPK dominant time. Now, it's a little bit different though when there's exogenous androgens in usage, because that's always chronically driving mTOR. That does not mean though it's happening globally. So AMPK in your calf could be happening right now, and mTOR
It's always
in your
happening in my calves
Exactly.
chronically.
I mean, seriously though, right? So you can choose to push it in one direction or another. So for bodybuilders, it's as simple as for those, say you work out for 3 hours, say 3, so 9 hours. 9 hours of that day, you push mTOR as hard as you possibly can. You make that period as anabolic as
Hold
possible.
on, why 9 hours? You said you're working out for 3 hours a day?
Let's say 3 hours.
And then 9 hours of what?
3 hours before, 3 hours after.
Got it.
So 3, about 9 hours.
Okay.
So that period, it should be everything, your heavy nitro. That's a little bit different there because you got to space out your protein throughout the day for most guys. But you want to load a bunch of nitrogen, then a bunch of glucose, because you assume that's whenever you're actually, loading a bunch of carbohydrates. Now, we'll go back to fuel selection depending on how someone responds. But those 9 hours, maybe even push it upwards of 12, it should be as anabolic as possible. And then you switch over and you need to drive recovery. You don't actually drive beta oxidation in the gym. You drive it during the recovery period, during the rest period. That's the other 12 hours.
So what I'm hearing you say is bodybuilders don't need to be anabolic 24 hours a day.
Yes, because it's still going to be anabolic 24 hours a day anyway.
Because of androgens.
Exactly.
But what if there's no androgens?
So even naturals, the stimulus of training, I think people don't give training as much, credit as it deserves.
Massive signal.
It's massive. If you don't have that signal, and I've done the old Bayesian studies with my clients whenever COVID happened, right? It was like—
You did what studies?
The old Bayesian studies where it's like just take androgens because they couldn't train. It's like, let's just see what it does.
There's no muscle loss for sure.
No muscle loss, a little bit of muscle gain, but it's nowhere near compared to someone who actually trains and takes androgens.
Yep.
So,
I often think about evolutionarily, there would have been no stimulus as stressful as training. Even getting into war and fighting, that's not going to happen every day for 2 hours a day. It's going to be some short amount of time. It's that's a really big signal that's not sort of native to the human system, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Let's sort of keep down this path of mTOR and AMPK. I've experienced a lot of bodybuilders throughout my time who don't need a lot of protein, don't even need a lot of training signal.
Yep.
They just grow. And maybe there's androgens involved, but let's remove anabolics and androgens, so no steroid use. What do you see as genetic differences person to person that should be considered when it comes to developing a training, nutrition, and lifestyle plan?
So genetically, it's interesting because those people that you say, because I've seen them too, those genetic outliers,
freaks, yeah.
right? Their total testosterone could be 200.
Totally. It's not.
That's not the driver.
No.
It's the mitochondrial and cellular systems. They can mode. So those neurochemical drivers.
You think that's the primary one?
I think it has to be mitochondrial and cellular because that's what sends the overexpression of the signal.
Sure.
So if you get the overexpression where, my one curl or their one curl equals my 50 curls, right? They get the overexpression. So that
overexpression of what?
Overexpression of mitochondrial and cell dynamics.
So adaptation, so we get more mitochondria?
Exactly. So every one rep they would do, it'd take me 50 reps to get the same amount of cell changes, whether that be pH fluxing or just stressing mitochondria to create more or whatever that is. Their one is equivalent of my 50.
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. You're of the belief that the biggest genetic difference person to person to build muscles at the mitochondrial level?
Generally, yeah.
Interesting.
Cells and mitochondria. It almost has to be that way because it's the same across all spectrums. In the IFBB world, all those guys I work with that are those freaks, same category. If you see the NFL, NHL, NBA player who same thing, tanked hormones, but yet they are the best on the field, right? It's the exact same because if you apply mitochondrial pressure, you get some benefits, but not as much as you would think versus someone who has lesser genetics, who's not pushing mitochondrial peptide supplements, practices to improve that. So there's also, though, then the hyper responders where they just metabolize certain things so well that, they could take one mitochondrial peptide or uroethanase supplement. And all of a sudden, that's all they need. It's more anabolic than my 1 gram of androgen or whatever that is. But I do think this has to start with the mitochondria and cellular level. Then I think level 2 is more of it almost has to be more neurochemical, right? Because if you can drive the motor learning process of how to contract a fiber more efficiently or how to do a certain motor pattern more efficiently, that even strengthens the signal harder.
Sure. Yeah, that's where I was going. I think I think it's multifactorial, right? Because I'll look at my genes and, the primary driver I see in a lot of my clients is their inflammatory genes. It's really interesting to watch people who have, let's say poor ability to tolerate inflammation. You got your interleukin 6s, your interleukin 15s, your HSCRP. You can see a lot of this genetically. Like this person is going to have a low responsiveness. And like generally you can see it in their body. They look a little squishy, they look a little inflamed. They maybe have a little higher cortisol predisposition. Then you look at someone's adrenaline genes, like, well, you're going to have high level initial peak, baseline, and a long tail of metabolism. Like you're going to have elevated adrenaline chronically. You tend to have you're a little softer, a little higher cortisol, maybe a little more intellectual. So I'm seeing all these like different levels of how genes are impacting somebody's, their personality tendencies, their physique tendencies, their ability to build muscle and break down. I've never even looked at mitochondrial, certainly genetics, but I have never thought at mitochondrial level being the primary driver.
So I had another one to add in there. And this is just
I'm sure there's a bunch that I missed.
It's probably in a couple, only the last couple years. These genetic traits that we think are so hard in stone, can't change them, different steps, like different everything, right? You think you cannot be influenced. All of these new generation of peptides and pharmaceuticals
changes it.
Exactly.
Completely.
The epigenetic expression data change those hard, fast rules we once thought. And so I usually don't like going down the genetic conversation. It's good to know, but then as long as you understand, like, hey, these can be influenced massively.
Sure, yeah. It allows me to push my focus, right? Because we don't, as you know, they only have so many places you can put your attention. I'm like, well, this is something you do poorly genetically, and I guess I'll speak for myself. This is something I know I do poorly genetically, and if I support that thing intentionally, I'm going to make sure this isn't a constraint, everything seems to work better and allows everything else to be effective.
Yep.
Yeah, so I hear you, but because you can probably see the genetic deficiencies in somebody's blood work and somebody's urine analysis if you know what you're looking for. Yeah. But for me, looking at genes has been really interesting because some people can get away with so much, and some people can't get away with anything. Yep. So to look at somebody's genes, I really believe there is strong genes and weak genes. Like some people look at you like you're probably going to live to be 100 no matter what you do. You can smoke 3 packs a day and eat cheeseburgers. You're going to be great. Other people, you're like, man, your genes are pretty bad. Meaning if your lifestyle doesn't really compensate, your body's going to struggle at these specific things. So it allows us to place our time and attention in certain places.
Biologically, right, we call that the rate limiting factor.
Yeah.
You find the rate limiting factor and then everything else gets magnified that much, right? Chatelier's principle, right, in chemistry. Like you look at that, and if you just apply that to everything, like find your problem, fix that. And it's not just in the gym, it's outside, it's in your health marks, like it's in every single thing. Find your weakness, bring that up, and it potentiates your strengths. What are the numbers? Like 30%, 40%, like whatever arbitrary number. The improvement on the weaknesses really make the strength stronger.
And personally, like I speak about this example a lot, but if I don't take riboflavin daily, my entire system falls apart. My digestion, my brain, it's crazy. Uh-huh. And I'll be like, I'm gonna intentionally not take riboflavin for 3 weeks. And I can watch my system, like literally my digestion, so maybe my immune system's a little bit shut down, my energy's not great, my brain function's not great, my recovery suffers, my sleep suffers. And I was like, just the only thing I changed is I'm just not gonna take riboflavin, which again, maybe I'm exaggerating, or maybe it's causing something else to be deficient. But literally the only thing I pull out is, and that's my genetic limitation. But just as an experiment, I'll play with it sometimes. Like, God, what a crazy thing. Right. And like, I can obviously see it in an organic acid test that I'm running low on riboflavin. But so if I didn't run genetics, I could still see it. But genetically, I'm predisposed to having that low thing. So it's interesting to sort of fixate on what's useful genetically.
I'm like that more with oxaloacetate.
Yep.
And it's kind of self-induced though, because that's fixing the NAD, NADH ratios, which you're burning through all the time. And as you do more, you burn through those ratios more and more. That's also what drives longevity. It's all about those ratios. So before getting the NAD infusion or taking the NAD supplement, fix the oxaloacetate side of things to fix the ratios.
Tell me about that. I don't understand enough about oxaloacetate.
Yeah, so oxaloacetate into the Krebs cycle, like everyone kind of knows the basics of that, right? It's the ratio and modulation between the reduced and oxidized NAD. So with NAD, it's also a step further though, because essentially if you have any dysfunction or inflammation, that's the worst time to take like an NAD IV, because it's going to push through that nicotinamide and methyltransferase and push out and actually grow a tumor, or to push more inflammation.
So say that again. If you're inflamed, you don't want to be taking NAD.
Unless if you manage that NNMT enzyme. Because if not, it's
how do you manage it?
Japanese phora, you can use parsley, like Nuchido. They have a really cool product, Nutrita Time Plus, I believe, is the company. 3 caps a day, and that pulls down NMT. You can
And how would I know that my NMT is elevated?
if you're taking NAD and getting inflamed, number one. But number two, almost everyone has elevated NMT as you age. It's the biological function, where as you get older, that goes up and NAD goes down.
Can I just eat parsley?
What's that?
Can I just eat parsley?
I did the math. You'd have to actually have like one of those shopping carts, like the ones you carry around, filled with actual parsley to get enough of the constituent.
I eat a lot of parsley.
If you eat that much, you're good. I mean, you and King could be munching on it all day,
Yeah, man. I'm going to grow parsley in my backyard. So I need to take this as a supplement, but not apigenin from parsley, some other ingredient that's in, most people know parsley for apigenin.
It could be. You could use quercetin, apigenin. They all basically do the same things. It's just the combination of those in a more bioavailable form. You could go with JBSNF Quad 08.
JBNF?
JBSNF.
Is a supplement?
0008.
That's a supplement.
Molecule. We'll put it in the small molecule trying to be a peptide.
Where am I getting it from? Oh, it's in the peptide space.
Basically, yeah.
Got it.
And I always say for that whole world, I call them small molecules, just all of them, because everything's being lumped together these days.
Sure.
There's so many things that aren't peptides. They're not small molecules, but they're new.
Well, I don't think it matters to the consumer.
Exactly.
It's like it just does this thing. But to us, maybe it matters a little more because we got to figure out what this thing's actually doing in the body.
It doesn't change the end fate of it, though.
Right.
So if we know it majorly pulls down that NMT enzyme, like I take some every time I travel, for like 5-10 milligrams, nothing crazy.
Because of increased oxidative stress from travel?
Yeah. So whenever you go through the airport security, I
Sure.
always tell them, like, hey, just pat me down to put me through that cancer machine, right? Because that radiation will start causing more cellular coherence.
Sure.
Then you have the cabin radiation, the cabin pressure, the change in elevation. As you're leaving the ground, less electrons from the earth, so even more negative.
So what are you doing to mitigate? Walk me through your travel protocol. Because I
It's all
travel
in
a
that
lot.
bag.
Yeah, totally. He's got a whole bag you're out with him for travel. That's awesome. So walk me through like a couple things that should be non-negotiable for people traveling. I get a lot of guys that travel.
Okay. So number one, Shen Blossom makes a Naniku throat spray. It has wasabi, clove, all these healthy things in there. So basically you spray it on your throat so it kills any pathogen on contact. I think number one, everyone's coughing, sneezing on
Can
you.
I spray on other people on the plane? Just walk around and be like,
It burns.
bathe
If you want to, right? Get someone in the eye because there's wasabi, so it kind of wakes you up a little bit. I think that's number one. I'm a big fan of Dragon's Blood and Pearl Powder. You ever use those?
No.
They're cool.
I think you were the first person to ever tell me about Dragon's Blood.
Cool.
I don't even know what
That's
it is.
right. Yeah. So Dragon's Blood comes from a tree, the Draco tree. The sap that comes out of that, it's the ORAC score, so the antioxidant potential. That's about 1 million. Whereas again,
So is it the highest
yeah.
Dragon's Blood?
There's probably some ancient Chinese herb out there I'm missing that's probably like 50 million.
Sure.
But like right now, Dragon's Blood is like one of the most preferred.
And it's just an antioxidant.
Yep.
And Amazon?
CultivateElevate.com. They'll have the Dragon's Blood, Pearl Powder, and also Shilajit. Yeah, Shilajit 88.
What's pearl powder?
So pearl powder actually comes from freshwater pearls. And that's the thing to not just pull down gut-based inflammation, but does a good job of pulling out endotoxins. I say endotoxins because you can mention a mycotoxin load, you could mention a pathogen, a bacteria. It's going to help to slowly express it out of the body. So that's a cool one to pull things out. So you can use that or Shilajit. So if you're picking things up, it's excreting it faster.
So for the listener, we're gonna turn this episode into an Alex Kikel chatbot. So we're gonna you're gonna have just be the last question to Alex.
That's what everyone's trying to do, and I don't give more information.
Turn into a chatbot.
AI.
And the last one you said was Shilajit 88.
Yes.
What's the difference between 88 and the other ones?
Just high percent of fulvic acid.
Got it.
And
the only thing you're getting out of Shilajit is fulvic acid.
Fulvic acid, humic acid, 80.
So detoxification, not for testosterone?
Pretty much. I mean, so you can. It can optimize mitochondrial function to improve testosterone release and action, but it's not my prime player for testosterone. And like,
is this a daily for you, Shilajit?
Yeah, I think
just for folic acid,
pretty
detoxification.
Much. Yeah, I mean, going back to like the aluminum being sprayed in the skies and everything on our foods, I think you're just always good.
Can I give it to kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, because people
doesn't taste good, but
people are pushing it for Shilajit or for testosterone. I was like, I'm not giving my kids testosterone boosters, but I definitely be up for giving them some folic acid.
Yeah, about 200 milligrams. So it'll be one capsule of the 88 one from them. Take that. I like it before bed. I like any recovery player. I like before bed.
Makes sense.
Because that's when you're driving lymphatic action, drainage, and like you're really driving for recovery then.
Yeah.
Versus the day is more the damage.
A lot of people in the longevity space now are playing with different phases, pushing anabolism versus pushing catabolism. Because all my guys are like, hey, we want to get in there and train hard, and they want to live long and they want to reverse biological age and all those things. And so should we be doing phases, longer phases of anabolism and phases of catabolism, even if it's like 3 days, 5 days of fasting, clearly defined phases of anabolism and catabolism when it comes to aspiring for longevity while still maintaining, muscularity and body composition?
The definition of anabolism and catabolism is hard for there, right? Because we can drive cellular fasting with oxaloacetate. We can drive cellular fasting with exogenous ketones.
So without the absence of food, just putting oxaloacetate is going to drive cellular fasting?
Yeah.
Interesting.
You get the same AMPK driver. But if you give a stimulus of mTOR, like a training recovery adaptation, it abolishes it. So the other periods of the day, whenever you're not training and recovering from it, as soon as that kicks it back on. Again, not globally, but in certain systems. But ideally, I'm a bigger fan. I always keep saying the word polarity because to me, everything's balance.
Totally.
It's balance in life. And to me, I think that everyone should be doing these things on a weekly basis.
Right. But it's hard to figure out what that means operationally.
Yes. And that's where I give guidelines, right? Because it has to fit into their paradigm. From a fasting side of things, number one, first of all, can you even fast? Certain people cannot fast.
Why?
No. So if they will over-liberate glycogen, they can still supply ketone bodies. Like that's no problem. But someone like myself, I had to stop fasting because I just get flatter and flatter and flatter.
Sure.
And I have to look a certain way for my job.
Sure.
But because I need the physique side of things, I can't do that. Other people can fast for 2-3 days and they seem to get fuller from the ketone.
Dude, I get so small. If I don't eat consistently, I just feel like a swimmer.
Yeah, right? And so to me, fasting and then also the liver sexuality changes between men and women. Usually,
got it.
Yeah. So if you look at like the estrogenic environment, this changes with the androgens, but the estrogenic environment in hepatocytes changes in a fasting environment with females versus males. Usually, traditionally, females higher estrogen load, and that changes hepatic stem cell release and action. And so normally, females can't fast as long as their male counterpart.
Totally agree.
So they're like 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, or the intermittent type setup. Whereas guys might be able to handle a day, 48 hours, something like that.
Now, is that genetic or is that metabolic health?
I think both. I think kind of has to be both.
Sure.
And then the layer on top of that is then once you introduce androgens, how does it change things? Because even just HRT will skew those ratios. If there's an exogenous estradiol and play male or female, that will then skew liver sexuality, and then will skew how you actually respond in a fasting scenario.
You said liver sexuality a couple of times. Is that because I'm a male and because I'm a female, or is there actually something within that?
Yeah, so only estradiol level concentrations in the liver. So not necessarily male or female genitalia, more just estradiol levels. So not estriol, not estrione, estradiol specifically in the liver. And it generally tends to be more predominant, not a problem or of a diagnosis in females versus males. So going back to the traveling stuff, the one you can't really not look at is exogenous ketones. That's the biggest thing is like the anti-radiation blocker.
Is it?
It is. Oh, yeah, for sure. That's where all like the astronaut research originally came out from NASA. It was mainly on exogenous ketones.
Dom D'Agostino, man.
So
Do you
cool.
know Dom?
I don't know him personally, but everyone says he's a great guy.
He's a genius. Yeah, he's been on the podcast 3 or 4 times.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
I think everyone has a different opinion on the best exogenous ketone product. And I've seen so many things work and not work for people. I'm very much a trial and error for everyone. So
that's what he says.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
Because he's not dogmatic about, and he's like, I don't think those are better. These are worse. He's like, you just got to see what works.
Okay, that makes me like him even better.
Yeah.
Like the ketone IQ. I personally metabolize that better. That breaks down into 3-hydroxybutanol.
Tom doesn't like it.
That's what people, that's okay. That's cool then, right? To me, it's a dosage problem because it's not the 1,3-butane-diol, it's metabolized at the liver and the 3-hydroxybutanol. Just because you're activating alcohol, dehydrogenase, and all those other things doesn't mean you're causing liver damage. Usually the numbers for that, you'd have to be like 50 to 100 grams, which is 5 to 10 bottles a day to get the alcoholic expression effects in terms of hepatocytes and stem cell in release. So it causes, basically causes the liver to not produce as much ATP, and that causes the damage. But that's a dosage problem, not just a single, attempt or a single drink.
Now, do you know that because of research, or do you know that because of mechanism? You're speculating,
Both. Both.
There's research that says
no, so not on the actual range.
Got it.
Because they show the damage, but if you look at a lot of the numbers that they're utilizing,
it's high.
Yeah, exactly. And so the dosage is off, and then I also think it goes back to the demographic population. So, and I don't think ketone IQ is the best one though. Like I think they're all equally. Like his, does he own Audacious?
His wife.
Okay, awesome. His wife. So that's the race mixture. Like, so that specific product I've seen personally work the best in the dysfunctional disease populations. So people with the cancers and leukemias, people with different inflammatory diseases, I would always tend to go back to that. Sometimes other people respond to the other ones too. Probably 90% of the time I'm going to that for like the health dysfunctional things.
Interesting.
The ketone IQ and the monoester, the ketone 8, I feel like those are interchangeable, but only based on the person.
Got it.
Because certain
I like
people,
ketone 8 but it just fucking tastes so bad. I can't.
It does. Oh yeah, for sure. And like for me, I love it, but I have to take 20 or 30 milliliters to feel anything.
But you're not normal.
Yeah, and other people. But
I mean that in the most endearing way.
But either way, yeah, to me, all ketones are beneficial. Mark Lobliner, he bought GoBHB, right? He's the CEO now.
Oh, wow.
He has been for a while. And I bought 30 of his tubs, like whenever there was last sale, because like I love GoBHB. But to me,
Never tried it. Is that like an ester?
that's salt.
Okay.
Salt-bound, more bioidentical. And for me, my response is that it gets elevated and stays there longer. But ketone IQ for me gives me a nice peak and keeps me there. Well, gives me a peak, and then the GoBHB keeps me there.
Got it.
So I can stack them, and I can match the same effects with the ketone IQ with ketone aid, but I have to take so much more.
So you said that ketones are generally useful for everyone?
Pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah, to me, ketones as a backbone for longevity.
Any negative effect on liver or gut health?
Generally only in higher concentrations and doses. People have to kind of go crazy on that. Some people with acid reflux and GERD can get weakening the esophageal sphincter, so acid will kind of come up, but that's usually a dosage problem. Gut microbiome-wise, usually we see better population improvements in the gut. We see better cell-to-cell communication. Like normally, I look at it this way too. If you look at the brain, we can use what? Glucose, we can use ketone bodies, we can use oxygen, we can use acetylcholine bodies. So we have 4 different ways to fuel our brain. So for me, someone who works all the time, if I'm not working, I'm with my kids and playing, or I'm working out, or I'm reading, I'm always burning through so much. I have 4 options. I can increase my carbs. I can't increase fats because I'm a gallbladder, but I can take more exogenous.
You don't have a gallbladder?
I don't.
Had it taken out?
In 2020, yeah. And that actually started my conscious journey, which we'll talk about like later on. And we'll talk about a bunch of things.
Yep.
But that was more the dimethyltryptamine release on top of the anesthesia.
During surgery?
Yeah, because I had a near-death experience, and anesthesia severs consciousness. So it destroys microtubules. So it's almost like the superhero who got exposed to toxic waste. I had an environment where you're so high on the conscious spectrum from the DMT release and the near-death experience, and then no connection from the actual anesthesia.
Right.
And that's very well documented on the anesthesia.
Sure.
How it destroys microtubules.
Do you think anesthesia around birth impacts young babies?
I don't. So a couple of different things. From a literary aspect, there's some potentials, okay? There's always some potentials there. But nothing that really makes me lean in that direction. Then I go back to looking around at everyone that I've worked with, everyone I know. I have thousands at this point of fertility cases of postpartum, of gestation, of all of these cool things. And I've never seen any correlation between that and any kind of a childbirth defect, neurological dysfunction, nothing at all. That being said, it's brief exposure, and I think prolonged exposure would cause more problems. And in best case scenario, I would say avoid it. Like if you could, just because there's a slight potential. But I've never seen that cause a problem. And at the same time, I'm not my wife. We've had 3 C-sections out of 4 kids. And so I couldn't imagine asking her not to go through that without anesthesia.
Yeah.
So I think there's the balance.
I always think we're resilient creatures. Like a lot of us have been exposed to some serious shit.
Yeah.
And like, we're such, I think it's such an incredible thing to be alive. Like we're such resilient little creatures, right? Little species. Yeah, it's amazing. Travel protocol.
Okay. So we talked about the ketone bodies. We said dragon's blood, pearl powder, potentially shilajit if you don't have the pearl powder in play. We talked about the Naniki throat spray. That covers the majority. Another thing you could get if you don't want the Naniki throat spray because it burns because it's wasabi. Life Extension has a blue bottle with these choking hazards of pills. They're these huge lozenges. Like they're ridiculous. I'll show you them later on. Like it looks like you're gonna choke. They are just zinc lozenges. Zincs kill pathogens on contact. So my kids, they're not gonna take that throat spray, but I could break up that lozenge and have them suck on it. So then as they walk through security, people are coughing them, they're not breathing anything in. It's being killed on contact. So you got to figure out for the kid's wife because they don't want to take ketones.
You're a germaphobe like me. You're like,
no, I feel just realistic.
Totally.
Like, I don't want to spend any second of my life less than 1,000% happy, healthy, and doing my stuff. And if I am sick, I will never admit it because I'm going to do my normal day anyway. I'll make the right decisions, obviously.
Yeah, it's a decision.
To me, we have all these tools. Why not utilize them? You don't have to use them all at one time. Like I take way more things than most people. I'll openly admit that. But I also don't see a lot of people doing what I'm doing day to day. So I'm kind of like, I think this is working because I notice a difference. And the cool thing is as you do that long term, you build your baseline. So you eventually can take less and less of that.
So it sounds like you're only focused on the immune system. No focus on oxidative stress, like anything.
You are. Yeah, the oxidative stress fixer from the dragon's blood, the pearl powder, and the ketones.
Right.
Yeah, so that's helping a lot. And then also Vinia has pi C resveratrol. kind of the better forms of resveratrol on the
Right.
market. They're
Like more
electrolytes.
recent discovery?
More recent, yeah. They're starting to really blow up. Used them for a while now, and now I think they got on some big podcast, and everyone's talking about them for good reason. They're amazing.
What's great about it, just as an antioxidant?
So the high seed resveratrol, you're not getting the same chemical potential from traditional resveratrol. So you can blend that with ions, electrolytes in a drink, and drink it while you're on flight, and you're fixing a lot of the sodium potassium fluxing changes that happen that cause edema, that cause inflammation. So as your body, more adipocytes, fat cells fill with water, that causes more inflammation. So you're fixing that osmotic gradient in the renal system while also just dumping a bunch of antioxidants on your system.
What do you think about molecular hydrogen?
Oh, I love that. So do we want to stick with travel protocol? We're going to branch off and go to a different subject.
Either way. So I know a lot of guys use it to travel, but I'd love to hear just like generally, that's where that segue came from. Is I know a lot of guys using it to mitigate oxidative stress from travel, but how do you think about it in general?
So perfect use for that because it'll manage the hydroxy radicals, right? You can also use to potentiate the stress of training to not just drive more stress during the training period, but drive more recovery afterwards.
So during training?
Yes.
Interesting.
So it's kind of annoying to do. The math, so if you have a 12 parts per million product, I like the Healer brand, love their stuff. One of their tablets in 17 ounces of fluid, because you have to manage concentration and dose.
Sure.
As concentration goes down, so smaller bottle, dosage goes down. No, it's the opposite. Concentration, dosage. So you need to have a bit large enough volume because the gas needs to build up.
Got it.
So 12 parts per million tablet in about 17 ounces of fluid. I think that's 500 milliliters of water. I know the owners of the companies and everyone in the molecular hydrogen world say, wait for it to build up and then drink it. But you're losing so much gas through the top that I think you should slowly, as it builds up, slowly sipping on it.
Got it.
So you wait for it to get that kind of really dense white gas and slowly sip on it and try and time it. So by the time it's dissolved, you're kind of chugging the last bit of it.
You're not worried about, so isn't that mitigating oxidative stress? You're not worried about mitigating oxidative stress in the workout?
No, because it's so selective, it'll actually drive that adaptation.
Interesting.
There's a ton of research on it. It's really cool. So it's like you're training harder, doing the same amount of intensity, load, volume, everything, but you're training harder at a cellular level, and you're driving more recovery post-workout, so the transitional state. Because post-workout, like your recovery post-workout doesn't start just because you stop training. It only starts when you reestablish blood pressure gradients.
Sure.
You pull down heart rate, ventilation, you start restoring glycogen homeostasis, depending on who you are. So it'll drive that process more efficiently.
So walk me through that. That was interesting. So I'm done working out, and there's a bunch of systems I have to normalize, reharmonize. What are those?
So first of all, and this is the application and the explanation, go into your car, corner, like quiet, meditate.
5 minutes. That's always my thing.
5-10 minutes, that's all you need. Because what you're trying to reestablish is not just a neurological input.
Parasympathetic.
Right? Because you cleaved so many acetylcholine bodies. The acyl groups we talked about earlier, right? That'll build up in the brain and cause insulin sensitivity. Yep. Those can build up in your biceps if you've had a hard bicep workout and cause localized insulin insensitivity. So we're trying to clear acyl groups. We're trying to pull
Meditation will do that?
Yes. Yeah. Also,
it's just the parasympathetic inputs?
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So more vagal tone related, but same thing. So
carnitine does it as well.
Yeah, injectable carnitine. You only need
after it has to be injectable?
Post-workout, yeah. The oral version is decent from like some fertility aspect changes, moderate on the performance, doesn't do quite much else on the traditional L-carnitine or tartrates, not acetyl L-carnitine. That's the neurological methyl donor player, right? So that's a different one to me. Traditional L-carnitine for these purposes to clear acyl groups almost has to be injectable because the oral one doesn't have enough chemical pressure. You don't feel any different. You don't recover any faster. But if you were to take the acetyl L-carnitine, you'd feel like you're recovering faster, but you're just donating to the actual acetylcholine synthetic process and actually clearing acyl groups.
What percentage of people should actually consider injecting L-carnitine? Because like you can make a statement like it helps you recover, but like unless you're training at a super high level, is it useful? I don't know. I'm curious.
So you can take it at a microdose before bed in a de-energized state to actually chelate heart-specific irons to decrease heart fibrosis. Like it's really big in the cardiac.
L-carnitine specific.
Yeah, yeah. That's when I say microdose, I mean like 10 to 50 milligrams.
Sub-Q or IM?
Either or. The problem is it's still going to build up those knots and adhesions. So
because it hurts.
That's always the rate limiting factor. Yeah. So everyone, to me, although everyone could benefit from like literally every single person alive, do you want to deal with the knots and the adhesions?
Man, I think everyone watching would have seen my face when you said injectable L-carnitine. I was like, went into this cringe. So I used it for probably one season as a bodybuilder. This is fucking terrible. It's uncomfortable. And then, then you start doing the other injectables we're using as bodybuilders. And then I was doing injectable glutathione, which also at the time, or injectable vitamin C. Don't ever inject vitamin C. I was just like...
Talk about that too.
Oh my God. It was I feel like a pincushion. I'm over it. I literally was like sitting here squirming as you were talking about injectable carnitine. Yeah, talk about vitamin C.
So first of all, real quick on that, I think the people that are already taking such a high androgen loaded injection volume should not go with carnitine.
Okay.
It's more volume, more inflammation, more damage.
Yep.
Versus if you're in a transitional state, maybe more of a cruise phase, or maybe someone who's just healthier, natural, or just HRT, it can benefit your androgen load dramatically. Could improve androgen binding affinity and constant, so how the ligand finds the receptor, and then gets pulled in by SHBG into the nucleus to cause expression.
This is probably an ending question. We won't end, but I'm curious. You're giving a lot of potential actions items. You're like, how does the average person sitting home decide which ones or 2 or 3 or 10 they should be focused on?
Pick your 2 biggest rate limiting factors.
Yeah.
Go back to this conversation and do one of the things I said for that one problem. And to me, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Unless if you're a veteran or someone where you know a lot of information about someone or you know about yourself, I don't like doing tons of things at one time with someone unless if they're advanced. Advanced, like we had the conversation beforehand, like someone like you, been there, done that, have a lot of data. Someone like me or myself, been there, done that, have a lot of data. If it's a first-time viewer, first time just getting into this world, don't take every peptide under the sun. Don't take every supplement. Look at your 2 biggest problems and pick one thing for each of them. Fix the problem, then drop it. See if you even need it anymore, and then go to the next problem.
I think what you're doing, though, is providing a list of tools, right? You're the carpenter, the general contractor coming in. You're like, look, I've got this huge tool belt of things that we could do. Here's how to think about it. It's like this side we have tool belts, this side we have symptoms and challenges. I'm like, well, how the hell do we match those things up? So like the Alex GPT is coming at the end of the episode.
That works. I'll take it. I joked with my wife the other day. Yeah. Artificial intelligence, let's go Alex intelligence.
Totally. Well,
still the same acronym.
Yeah, there's probably some value in you just like
that. If that sounded arrogant, I apologize.
No, man. I think everyone, like some people may come to me for different things, but like everything's just learning tools and learning when to pull the lever, Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah, because you don't pull all the levers at one time.
Right.
Or else haywire happens, chaos happens, you don't know what worked and what didn't work.
Yeah. The 2 things that I focus most of my time and focus on is performance, which can mean anything from I want to move better, I want to get bigger, I want to run faster, I want my brain to work better. And the other side of that is longevity. And sometimes the performance and longevity sometimes can seem like they're at odds with each other. So I'd love to, if you have like a general way you think about performance and a general way you think about longevity at a high level to help the audience think a little bit more effectively. Because, information is free. It's everywhere. What is useful, I think, is contextual application of information, which sometimes requires like a different way of looking at things. Yep. So how does Alex Kikel think about performance longevity?
Let's start with longevity, because that's kind of where I'm at. To me, if you want to have it all, you kind of have to do it all. In the longevity world, to me, you kind of have to do it all within moderation. So what that means is in the longevity community, I don't think there should be this avoidance of hypertrophy or strength work. There also shouldn't be the only sole focus on mobility and movement or the rebounding work. Like I think to me, like my setup—
Deep generalist.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So to me, my setup for my personal day is hypertrophy strength session in the morning. And then in the afternoon, on top of the walks and everything during the day, is I'll blow out my lungs with some high intensity interval training. And I'll do more rebounding work, more what I'll call longevity functional movement work, soft tissue work, and things like that. So we're focusing on every system. But my paradigm's a little bit different because I have to look this way, for my job. But for a lot of other people, that could be 1 or 2 hypertrophy sessions a week, and then 3 sessions of HIIT, or 2 sessions of rebounding. Because the rebounding, like I'm sure you've read all the research on the big toe, and it's been out forever, right? Like how that connects to the opposite glute, opposite cortical region, pineal gland stimulation, like it's awesome. And that basic jumping up and down, letting gravity help you is such a big driver on cellular health in—
Man, I look at it, I go to the trampoline park as often as I can, and I use one as often as I can, but sort of for different reasons, but sorry, keep going. I was sitting over here like smiling.
Yeah. Jump rope, right? Or just get out of bed and jump up and down.
Yeah.
Like rebounding in any fashion, it's that up and down bracing.
Yeah.
You could even do, you set up, if you guys could see my Palooza shoes, they're pretty cool, right? You set up the calf press and you just throw it, like some more explosive based work, anything to kind of catch that rebound and have gravity work against you when signal from those opposite regions to get the driver we want.
Yeah. So I call it, in bodybuilding, we train for rigidity. And that's useful because we want to be strong, we want to be rigid, we want to be able to resist force and, fall and catch ourselves. The other side of that, I call it fluidity. And so bodybuilding is very much top down, more to control. Fluidity is very much bottom up, more to control. So like it's reflexive. And I think the trampoline does unbelievable job in like allowing your your reflexive sort of lower motor neurons tell upper motor neurons where the body is in time. I think we lose that as we age. So I try to involve it in every one of my clients' programs. I'm like, you got to do things that are reflexive, like catching a ball, playing basketball, changing directions. We lose that as we age. We lose mobility. We lose the ability to get into range, and we lose the ability to reflexively get out of those sort of fast twitch reflexive responsive. Man, I'm a massive fan. Massive.
Yeah, and to me, it's the combination of doing everything, because you have to be strong enough in case of anything, of a fall, of, I don't want to say an attack, but like, to me, you should be pretty well-rounded, right? Because anything could happen. If you get in a car wreck or someone, whatever, tries to rob you and shoot you, if you have more cushion, there's less of a potential to damage an organ, right? So to me, the longevity space should be more focused on everything, but understand you can't overtax and stress the system to where you're doing what I do, which is every day it's everything. Right? Because that, you can't do that for long periods of time. You have to be a certain individual.
It's bodybuilding.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas you go to the bodybuilder and the performance athlete, so the opposite of what we just talked about, I still think those basic things need to be there, but it needs to be more sport specific. So the bodybuilder, for example, although you're focusing on that rigidity type training, 20% of the reflexive stuff, I would put more into the soft tissue mobility work to where they don't need to be jumping up and down and risk hurting their Achilles.
Sure.
But doing something to make sure the mobility and range of motion is there, which will just potentiate the lengthening and stretching and shortening in order to drive more hypertrophy. So I think it's more of an 80-20 rule in the performance athlete specific to the sport, and longevity is more 50-50.
Yeah, I love it, man. So summarizing what you said about longevity, from a movement side, you're thinking about like sort of being the deep generalist, or what I'll call is the Renaissance man. Like, I want to be able to run, jump, play, fight, lift, all of it, and have no movement restrictions. Like, how do I do that when I'm 80? And so, like, that's literally what my whole life is about now. What my whole business is about now is like, I say I want to be an athlete when I'm 80. And that means still be able to whoop my kids' ass in sports, keep up with my buddies, and hopefully the kids that are in their 20s. So how about from like a high level architecture of nutrition and supplementation, and how do I choose these interventions? Is there some overall general consensus you're thinking about when it comes to longevity?
So I still think the balance on AMPK and mTOR has to be there. Whether that is training driven, nutritionally driven, just changing your split setup driven, that has to be there. The overall arcing theme from longevity aspect to me is I still think it's cyclical, meaning you shouldn't go through a bulk and a cut like a bodybuilder would. But yeah, if you look at how humans evolved, and we can't always go back to that, but there was still feast and famine. I think to some degree there should be feast, there should be famine. Now in the longevity community, that doesn't mean gain 20 pounds. That could just mean be hypercaloric for 4 or 6 months, or not 4 or 6 months, like 12, 20 weeks, something like that, and then go back to more of a hypocaloric state, right?
Yep.
So you gain maybe a couple pounds, reprieve some systems, maybe take some downtime, then go back to more of a deficit. It's same thing like the cyclical ketogenic diet, cyclical carbohydrates, cyclical carnivore. Do all the diets out there. Write down on your paper which ones you responded best to, pick the top 2, cycle between those. So for me, I respond the best to high carbohydrates and to carnivore. Can't do keto anymore because obviously don't have a gallbladder, like I said. And so the metabolism of fats, I can still take all the oxbal and slippery elm in the world, but at a certain degree, it's still too much for my system. So I stick to more cyclical carnivore. I'm going more hypocaloric like I am now dieting. And then I'll go more high carbohydrate during like the feasting time of things.
Dude, it makes so much sense. Like, we're cyclical creatures, right? Like, seasons of life, there should be seasons of nutrition. Is there any markers you're looking for? So for example, when I'm training myself, I may do 12 weeks of hypertrophy training followed by 5 to 7 days of very low calorie fasting. And then maybe I'll follow that up with a couple weeks of low calorie dieting with some focus on anaerobic fitness. And I'm doing blood work. Every time there's a transition from one phase to the next, I'm doing blood work. Are there any specific markers you're looking for from a metabolic perspective that the audience should be looking out for? Like, hey, every time I run my blood test, these are the markers that are most important to me when it comes to longevity.
So overall level.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So regardless of phase, I think every 12 to 20 weeks, you should be getting CMP, look at all of your lipids, look at your thyroid. The hormones, they matter, but they also matter the least amount to me, because we're trying to get them stable, what that means for us. Reference range is, for example, for a female, what's the top end of testosterone, like 40 or so? Whereas in reality, a lot of females on HRT, blood-wise, are like at 100, and they feel amazing. Mm-hmm. No masculinizing side effects.
So looking at symptoms rather than numbers.
Exactly, yeah. And then we correlate that to our own reference ranges. So to me, the hormones are hit or miss once you figure them out. because in the longevity community, you're not always changing those. Really, they're pretty much stagnant once you figure out your own chemistry. So you have those basics done. And then I really like maybe once a year, heavy metals, maybe once a year, technical mycotoxins, because everyone to some degree is going to have some exposure. Interleukin-6, HSCRP, some basic inflammatory markers everyone should kind of know. Those should be done roughly every 12 to 20 weeks. And to me, that's your baseline. So everyone every 12 or 20 weeks gets those, just see what's going on. Then based on your symptomology, maybe throw in a Vitrex gut test to see what's going on microbiome-wise. And once you're good there—
Is Vitrex the company?
Yeah, VITRACT. They're probably the easiest to use too, because most of them have, you give that saran wrap on the toilet paper, defecate, and it's like you're playing with it like a raccoon. It's not that fun, you know? They send it a little swab, basically wipe, and then get a little sample off the toilet paper, put in a little vial, shake it up, send it in. Easy to use, usually back in like 3 or so weeks, and very, very accurate, not just pathogenic, but overall bacterial load, which is cool. So more ancestral strains, the longum populations, things like that. So I really like that. And I generally would say, like, get that first, figure it out. If it comes back and your gut's terrible, only focus on fixing that. Once you get that test back and it's better, then put that in the category to recheck in 6 or 12 months, then go to the next test. Maybe it's
gut first. Yeah.
Maybe not first, but for most people, yeah. It's almost always that, unless we know there's something else. And then go to maybe like a true age diagnostic test and see what's going on with overall biological age, methylation markers, like the basics, right? And then there's problems that pop up there. Fix them, test that. I think they have that sale. It's like buy 4 for a year and it's cheaper or something.
Which one? For
True age and True Diagnostic.
They do? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think you buy 4 for the year and you save like whatever amount of money, because that's more expensive. So for most people, I don't do that right out of the gate, because sometimes it's kind of a turnoff. But then you get those back, fix all those, right? Then once your gut's good, once you know your methylation markers are good, then pick your poison. You want to go with an organic acid test. You want to go with pick something else you think you're lacking, or you just want to know, get that done, and then keep testing it consistently until you're getting that better. Yeah. So we're trying to fix rate limiting factors and focus on one thing, because too many people get all the tests done at one time. Totally. And what do you do? Right? Totally. There's 1,000 PDF document pages to read, and you're going to take like 10,000 supplements?
So you laugh. This morning was my day one, but I just signed up for Function Health. I've never used it before. A lot of my clients are using it. I paid. I'm not endorsed by them. And so the baseline for the year is like $399. I'm like, sweet, I'll do that. And then you go through the lab of like, oh, you can upsell this. I was like, sweet, Grail test, cancer, go.
Why not?
Next one, sweet, IgG, great, get it, go. Sweet, myco test, got it. And by the end of it, I got a $4,000 bill. And I've got 3 days, so I can't do all the labs in one day. I got to do 3 consecutive days. This morning was my first day, tomorrow, and then Wednesday. So I'm right in the middle of doing way too many tests, but I got sold. I was like, sweet, I haven't done these in a couple of years. Let's do it.
And that's the tough part. Right. With supplements, with peptides, with lab work, like we're in this age of knowledge where it's like, I get it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's shiny object syndrome, but it's just like, it's so fun. Right. When it's your passion, like you're kind of like, why not? And then if you have the finances too, it's even worse. Right. Because you can justify everything. I could write this off, or I could make this into content. Right. So like, I get in trouble with my wife all the time. Because like
$10,000 test, I needed its content.
It was like the ARC, the PEMF device, $25,000, and I bought it, and I didn't say anything, which I got yelled at for later on.
How much is that? $1,500?
Yeah, I was like, oh, $25,000.
So you're saying we could have bought a car?
Yeah, or saved up for college. I was like, but it's a write-off, and I can make content on it. Right. But I will, just because I brought that up as an example. I think that's the single device that completely changed my life from longevity and performance aspect, literally overnight. Now, that's only for me personally. Sure. I had such a robust response because I took so much time to get to the point where I'm at. I knew that was the one part I was missing.
Mitochondrial testing. You didn't say mitochondrial testing. You said organic acid, which sort of encompasses that. But have you found any companies that do useful mitochondrial testing? You kind of hear these, like, some people say, this is the best, and they all suck. And I'm like, I'm not really sure.
I don't think they all suck. I think we're still waiting.
Right. Kind of like microbiome was 5 years ago.
Basically, yeah, exactly. I think we're kind of there on the same time with mitochondria. I actually left the one think tank or research group that I was doing work with. We were working on exogenous mitochondria for 2 years now. Someone else actually beat us to it as well, so I also kind of dissolved it. But it was one of those things where part of the problem was the testing parameters.
What does exogenous mitochondria mean? Like building mitochondria outside of the cell?
Imagine an IV bag of mitochondria.
Oh, interesting.
The problem is we were basically genetically modifying them, so their millivoltage potential was 100 times what a normal mitochondria is.
Let's go.
No. You just blow up. You just become an inflammatory mess, and you kick off even more ROS from that. Got it. So normally—
So I'm not going to become a superhero? No Avengers? Yeah. I think that's the future, man. I'm not even kidding.
I agree.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we should not neglect to talk about is the entire world is, at least in my world, maybe not the entire world, but it seems like the entire world is like diving down the rabbit hole of peptides. And I know you're someone I would consider a very high level authority on peptides. And so we can sort of jump off wherever you like, but what do you feel about peptides? How would you explain peptides to the audience who's curious? I think everyone's just overwhelmed, confused, trying to learn, not sure what to believe, thinks everyone's a genius, thinks everyone else is full of crap. I'm like, what is the landscape in Alex Keuchel's mind?
Okay. I think peptides are truly remarkable. I do think that they, because a couple years ago, 10 years ago, right? We were using all these things in the bodybuilding world and sports world. Would have never thought we'd see a commercial for semaglutide. And now there's peptides on TV, which I think is amazing, right? I think there's still the abuse of it, obviously, like everything else. And you see atrophying of the prefrontal cortex and things like that from abuse of these GLPs. Which
I've never seen that.
Ooh, okay. So we'll talk about that. Let's get to some of the basic questions first. I think it's like everything else. It's a tool, and it's a strong tool that more people should be utilizing. And I don't think it's a hard sell anymore. Like you said, everyone likes it. Everyone's intrigued in them. I do think the problem comes into the shiny object syndrome. Like what we said before, you want to try everything, and you don't know what you need. So instead of going off on like way too deep stuff, let's look at basics, right? What's one peptide that everyone should probably be utilizing? It's more of the category, right? I think number one, everyone has mitochondrial dysfunction. Like you can't argue that. We've said it so many times already. So number one is your first introduction to this peptide space is mitochondrial driven. I would rather give out the blanket statement of MOTC. So mitochondrial open reading frame with the 12th sRNA-C, that tells you where it's working. It's in the mitochondria, spitting out these short open reading frames. That causes mitonuclear communication. So it literally tells mitochondria to talk to each other better. So number one, from a mitochondrial fixing aspect, get your mitochondria to talk better.
First.
I think so, yeah, because it has such a low negative side effect profile.
Right.
That's the other thing too. With all these mitochondrial peptides, if you take too much, you hyperpolarize or you overspin your ATPase to have a bunch of oxidation and you get wired, tired, and you actually get inflamed. So if you take too much, you have just as many problems as if you don't take enough.
So I want to asterisk that because you said relatively great safety profile, provided you're getting a good product.
Correct.
Because that's a huge, we'll talk about that, but that's a huge
and
topic.
that's, I don't think it has to be as crazy as only straight from compounding pharmacies, but that also doesn't mean buy what your friends are buying. You need to make sure you're having things mass spec'd and third-party tested. And so go to someone who knows that or your friend. Like, I think people need to do their due diligence and not just buy the first thing they see and do not go after the sales.
Don't buy the cheapest stuff.
Yeah, if it's cheap for a reason.
And I have a list, as do you. I have a list of people in China, and I can get every peptide for between $7 and $14.
Yep.
I'm like, I would never put it in my body, certainly by injection. I'm like, are you crazy? Anyways.
Yeah, no, and I've mass spec'd all those. And you're getting purities of like 90%, 85%.
That's a big gap.
Oh, yeah. The amount of proteins can be misfolded in there.
Right.
I don't like the whole lipopolysaccharide conversation because they make it seem like it's in everything. It's not in that gram-negative bacteria. It's not in the majority of peptides. It's a potential for those 85% purity, things like that. Those peptides, it's not usually the most common one, though. It's usually more these oligomers and heterodimers get misformed. So these proteins misfold, you inject them, misfold it, and that's when you have the site-to-site or the site-localized interaction, the immune response for other reasons too, but that's usually a big one. But going back to peptide 1, I think mitochondria is relatively safe, or MOTC is relatively safe for everyone, because if you go 100 to 500 micrograms subcutaneous, first thing upon waking.
So low.
Yeah, very low, or I think in that low range. I think you can always add more, right? It's easier to slowly build up over time because the results they're not going to stay, they're not linear. Right? As you build and fix your mitochondria, they're going to be more receptive to these compounds and they'll work better. So certain people can hold at a dose and it's not like you have to progressively overload from like a peptide aspect. It's
You think every day?
You can. Yeah, depending on how you're actually setting things up. Because you can also give your mitochondria days to like really drive a lot of recycling. So you could bolus like urethane or like IV spermidine or other things like that.
IV spermidine?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, if you have access to it, which is a little bit harder to get, but it drives autophagy crazy well. It's really cool.
Is that still a source from wheat germ? So people who are celiac wouldn't work?
Yes. So there's spermidine trihydrochloride, the synthetic version, and it's technically not supposed to work as good as spermidine, traditional from wheat germ, because there isn't the other constituents in there as well. But I've seen it work pretty close, like probably 95, 98% just as close. So I just go with the synthetic trihydrochloride version.
If someone is a celiac, that's a digestive thing. Are they going to have a reaction to IV wheat germ or IV spermidine?
They potentially could. Most of them, though, are more derived from the trihydrochloride, I believe.
The IV ones?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. I'll always double check just to make sure. So there's a couple out there that aren't, but I believe most of them are still the trihydrochloride. Okay. It's just easier. But back to the MOTS-c. So you start that off. Ideal, you're pairing it with 2 habits because I don't like taking something. I want to take something to do something. Ideally, good habits. So ideally, you take your MOTS-c in the morning, go outside, ground, and get first light exposure. So you're getting that circadian cascade through BML1 in the brain. The mitochondria are talking to each other because of the MOTS-c. You're getting electron donation from the earth to start improving cell communication. And the bottom of your feet have the biggest pores in your body. So it's pulling out more of those endotoxins. So right there, you're doing 3 things. 1 peptide, 2 actions, and you'll get whatever arbitrary 50% more action out of your MOTS-c from doing those therapies. Yeah. Right? So to me, I like pairing something new with some kind of an action to actually make them work better versus just taking it and hoping it works. But MOTS-c is usually like, it's an easy first go-to option. Kind of tied with that might be something like one of the thymic peptides. You almost can't go wrong with, I'm a bigger fan of actually Thymogen alpha-1. That's from Integrative Peptides. They're the only ones that make it.
Orally.
Yes. Yeah. So this is more technically in the bioregulator category. Bioregulators are, I don't want to say safer than peptides, but because there are a couple amino acids, traverse the cell, turn on gene expression, they have almost no negative side effects.
Because it's oral, you're not worried about
exactly, toxins. Yeah. And the Thymogen alpha-1 is I prefer it over the Vladinix, the traditional thymic bioregulator, because you have the Thymogen and the alpha-1. So the A1 component actually will drive the immune response. The Thymogen will toggle it. If you need more or less, it'll basically be the immunomodulator if you need more or less action. So if you're anyone with an autoimmune disease, with overactive immune system, you could take this for the Thymogen component.
Right. Why oral versus injectable?
So there's, all the names are tough, right? Thymogen, Thymagen. Yep. That's the bioregulator injectable version. I would put that over a Vladinix, but that is the injectable basic version of Vladinix.
So I was thinking you said Thymogen alpha-1 oral versus Thymogen alpha-1 injectable.
Thymogen. Okay, couple ones. So this is where it's tough, right?
Yep.
So first you have Vladinix, the oral bioregulator.
Which is the one.
Yep, for the thymic gland. Yep. Then you have Thymosin alpha-1 injectable. Yep. That's more of the acute player. Okay. So if you look how it works with the thyroid gland or the thymus gland, it's acting more acutely. So that's more you're going to have someone over Thanksgiving, you take it then before you get sick, right? That's the acute couple weeks player. Thymoline injectable compound, right? That's more of the long-term genomic player. That's the thing you take once a week, twice a week for more long-term change to the immune system. Then we have Thymogen alpha-1, oral bioregulator from an integrative peptides. That has the Thymogen and the A1 component. Okay. So it'll auto-toggle. Then you have the Thymogen injectable, which is basically like the injectable version of Vladinix. Essentially, that's kind of how it works. Okay. So you have all these options. The easiest one is Thymogen alpha-1 from integrative peptides. Again, Thymogen alpha-1, because they're also similar, because it'll auto-toggle. It's more expensive, which is annoying. I don't think it should be that expensive, but it's an amazing product. And so I like that because it's safe, right? If you take Thymosin alpha-1, the injectable preparation, too long, you'll actually overdrive the immune system because you'll screw up Th1, Th2 ratios, and you actually get an immune response from that. But you have to take it higher dose for like 6+ weeks.
Thymosin alpha-1 injectable?
Correct.
Who should be taking the Thymogen alpha-1 oral, period? Who should be taking these?
Pretty much everyone. My kids take it when they want to take the pills. To me, that's the long-term thymic gland player to also modulate the immune system. Because our thymic gland, that thymus, is really what will calcify and atrophy as we get between 30, 40, 50. But that's assuming normal biology. Or you don't have normal biology anymore in today's society. Right. So So I'm trying to bulletproof my kids for the future. I'll break it up into like a little mixer and I'll pull it out in an insulin syringe orally and I'll inject it into my dog's mouths. So it gets their thymic gland. Actually works really good for dog immune systems. Feline immune systems works pretty well too. But yeah, everyone in my house takes it.
So MOTS-c as the primary mitochondrial, Thymogen alpha-1 as the primary immune modulator. What else are you taking for mitochondria? What do you think of SS31?
I love SS31. So that's everyone says cardiolipin. Like in reality, what that means is how electrons get skipped across the ETC. That's important because when you overspin mitochondria, those protons leak and the electrons slip. So they're floating out here, interacting, causing more hydroxyl damage and more ROS accumulation. So it'll basically pull that electron and skip it more efficiently. So that literally means it will improve how quickly and efficiently you structure your own water. So if it's making the electrons improve, hitting ATPase and spinning better, it's improving that whole process. So SS31 is cool. It's hard though, because you can dose that sucker pretty high for most people.
Like what's high?
So let me put this in context, first of all. Baseline. Most people, if you're taking it as a daily therapy, which you can, I like about 500 micrograms to 1 milligram. Usually 1 milligram a day is a really sweet spot for most people. Most people won't hyperpolarize there. It's usually a pretty safe compound, but right there is enough energetic stimulus, enough overall drive, enough health benefits to where you're not wasting money, because it gets expensive, right? Then you have this range, right, where it is more financially dependent and then disease sickness dependent. The more sick you are or the more finances you have, technically you could get away with taking more until you find your threshold.
Which is what?
I've had people take 100 milligrams.
A day?
Yeah.
For how many days?
That was about 7 days. As an experiment, this person had all the money in the world, and it was like, wow, they never felt better. All old injuries went away. Like it was almost like a godsend for them. That being said, that's so expensive for most people.
Sure. And how long did it last?
That never changed. That stayed there. So all these peptides are meant to make long-term changes, assuming you keep up with all the other habits you change. So we did a lot of work to get into that point. Now scale back from that. People are doing 10 milligrams in a bolus or 25 milligrams in a bolus like once a week, twice a week to kind of heal mitochondria, push a little bit of urethane A to recycle damaged mitochondria on that day, nothing for the next 6 days and do it again. That's another popular way to use it. And let me say that too, there's 1,000 protocols out there. And they all have benefit. We're trying to fit it into your paradigm.
It sounds like SS31 is sort of ubiquitously beneficial. Like I did 5 milligrams a day for 30 days. Saw an amazing benefit. But I was like, let's try 10 milligrams a day for 30 days. And I'm in the middle of it now. I stopped because I'm doing my bloods this week. So I don't like to do anything on the blood days. But it seems like the higher, so far, I haven't got any higher than 10, but it seems like the higher the dose, the better. I feel just so clear. So I feel great.
Have you done intranasal SS31?
No.
So you can reconstitute the same, use deionized water just so you don't kind of burn or anything, and you'll feel. So if you would do a 10 milligram vial, I believe it's a 5. Actually, I'm going to screw up the math.
Yeah,
essentially, if you work that out to be a couple hundred micrograms intranasal, that's going to drive neural mitochondria to an insane level. So your focus and concentration go up. I was actually just talking with Ben Greenfield the other day about intranasal insulin, intranasal creatine, that nasal cascade, just because we're talking about it, connects directly with the amygdala and the hippocampus. So memory and emotions and easy delivery into the brain. And if it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, it can still interact with peripheral systems to turn on something else to get it into there or drive that specific molecule into the brain. So it could be an indirect, kind of like GABA, right? Doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, but yet I sleep pretty well on it, right? It's because of the peripheral-based changes. That's more a vagal tone change.
Why are we doing insulin intranasally?
Intranasal. So remember, our brain releases its own insulin in and of itself. If you can improve the metabolism of your brain, what happens? More nutrient partitioning. You can push around mainly glucose, but also acetylcholine bodies and ketone bodies more efficiently to which cortical regions you need. So more focus and concentration goes up dramatically. So let me backtrack. If you're learning, hippocampal dominant, we're really focusing on learning something hard. If you're trying to push more fuel into that hippocampus to full memories more efficiently, and it happens everywhere, but we'll say for there, then insulin can drive those nutrients, just like you would drive it for a quad workout, same thing, but in the brain for the specific cortical region. We wouldn't do it daily. This would be an infrequent play.
Sure. That's great. Super helpful. What do you think about Epitalon?
Love it. So first off, a couple different delivery systems, right? The original injectable, right? So let's actually backtrack to what Epitalon is. I get ahead of myself because I get excited. If we look at its ability to hypertrophy the pineal gland, I think that's probably number one on its list on top of the telomerase changes. So with the pineal gland, that to me is the extension to consciousness. So that's how we can connect with the electromagnetic fields around us. I can feel if you're mad, or I can sense if he's feeling weird or whatever. Like you can feel that's more pineal gland related. And then the pineal gland takes care of the melatonin production and so many other things that are beneficial for our brain and our body. So overall pineal health, I think is number one. Number two is the telomerase. So if you look at telomeres as we get older, it's that 3' overhang that shortens, right? We want to add length back to that 3' overhang, right? So without going too deep into it, the telomerase will go ahead and add that back. So the original research, I believe, I forget how it was mistranslated on the dosage, but it was like 20 milligrams a day or 10, like it was really high doses. And the doses actually came back to be close to like a milligram a day. It wasn't that high, number one. Number two, if you do have an active tumor, if you're in the cancer world, it will actually fuel the actual 3' overhang of the telomerase, of the telomeres inside of the tumors.
So get cancer testing first.
Exactly, yeah. So check cancer labs is a good place. They'll check for CTCs, circulating tumor cells. Most people are obviously not, but it's still something to obviously check so you know. But the injectable preparation to me is something you use less frequently and at a modest dose. I think the 1 milligram a day for 5 days, 10 days is more than enough. The 10 milligrams plus a day, it's not that it's bad for you. If you don't have a tumor, if you have a tumor, it's bad. But if you don't have a tumor, you're just kind of wasting milligrams. You can only do so much activity with that.
2017, I was mentored by a guy who was Cavinson's lab assistant.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and he said that we are just completely wrong in the West. It's like it's way overdosed. It's like you don't need anything. Just like go. He was telling me 500 micrograms, 2 milligram would even be too much. He suggested 21 days, completely reset your circadian rhythms.
Yep.
So landed in the same place. I don't know where you heard that we're overdosed, but that's what he was like. Because these guys like Dr. Seeds were. I don't know if he's still saying the same, but you're saying 10 milligrams a day, like you were saying. It's like, and these guys are like, it's just unnecessary.
Yeah, know nothing about Dr. Seeds. Never talked to him personally, so I'm not sure. And so, okay, we go from the injectable. If you want the long-term chronic player to more circadian telomerase, like a little bit of everything, but not so much chemical pressure, you could also go with the oral preparations. And that's like what I prefer.
Of Epitalon.
Yeah.
Didn't know it was orally available.
Yes. There's a product, Best 365 Labs used to have it. I don't know if they still have it on their website. It was a sleep product, and it had a microdose of melatonin, a microdose of GABA, but the oral Epitalon was amazingly beneficial because what do you get? At like 2.5 or 5 milligrams, even like Level Up Health. No, either them or Limitless, they have like a 3.3 milligram capsule. And that sub 5.
Epitalon.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that sub 5
Shout
milligrams.
out to Level Up Health. Love those guys, man.
Pretty sure it's them. I could be wrong. It might be Limitless.
They have amazing products.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, right?
Kyle over there at Level Up.
Seems like a nice dude.
He's amazing. Yeah.
But yeah, so that one will drive physiological levels of telomerase expression.
Interesting.
Physiological levels of pineal gland stimulation. So you're never overriding the system with an injection. So the oral can be taken every day, which I'm just a hyper responder to that, so that's what I take. But if you are not a hyper responder to that, or you just want to inject something or like time it specifically, then you would do the injectable preparation for truncated windows.
Done, intranasal?
Yes. It tends to be mixed 50-50. Not just for me, but a good amount of people where it seems to really reset circadian patterns pretty quick. Same with like an SR009. Whereas the other 50%, it doesn't seem to do much from a circadian aspect. It will change the nutrient partitioning. I've seen some people get a lot of decent changes of the body composition with intranasal Epitalon.
Interesting.
So kind of going back to more the metabolic centers, trying to actually, because your brain accounts for so much oxygen utilization, it burns so many calories. So if you can imagine upregulating that process with Epitalon, it's just going to suck up more calories.
My brain is burning a lot of calories listening to you talk.
That's why I have my intra-workout shake. I got ketones, I have glucose, I got a
glucose IV going on over here. Right? You just can't see it. Ketones and glucose.
Some spermidine in
there. Very cool. How about Pineal? Where's your position on Pineal?
I think from experience, not on research, not on paper, but in the actual experience aspect, I see Epitalon working better at pineal gland stimulation. It seems to be more targeted, more direct. And I say that because we have maybe 90 to 95% success rates with Epitalon, with changing those circadian patterns, with changing the sleep habits, all that stuff.
Yep.
Whereas Pineal, however you pronounce it, right? It's still almost 50-50. It's kind of like, why am I not seeing anything? And that's actually, if we kind of sidestep to the bioregulators as well, I absolutely love them, right? I personally am a hyper responder to them. But I still see, although those are long-term players, I still see those being like 50%.
Sure.
50% of people feel nothing and they've taken them for years and months on end.
Yeah.
No biological age change, no methylation changes. So that to me, I think you try it out, but you might be half of the population that doesn't seem to respond well.
You said something interesting. We should not gloss over that. Biological age, epigenetic changes. So when we're taking these peptides, when I'm taking them, I won't speak for you, but when I'm taking them, my objectification of progress is, as you say, doing these true age tests from True Diagnostics. So I have no affiliation. Ryan Smith over at True Diagnostics has been a guest in the show. He's an amazing, brilliant guy. And we can literally measure these biological ages of different organ systems. So like I'll run it every 4 to 6 months. And my biological age reversal has been crazy. I'd love to hear what yours is. So when I retired from bodybuilding at 37, I retired at 35, but I did my first epigenetic test. I think it was 37 or 38. And my biological age was 54. I was like, this is bad. I did.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So I measured it again recently, and I'm at 31. So like big shift. So I've aged 7 or 8 years. So, forward 7, 8 years, and I've reversed my biological age by 20 plus years, which is
awesome.
amazing. And like each organ system is doing extremely well. Still trying to reverse the age of the brain, still trying to reverse the age of the heart, but everything else is, it's fantastic. But like this is just objectifying these things every year, trying to get them further and further back.
I'm about to have my new one done soon, waiting for my next deload to do it.
Yep.
Really excited for that. Last one I got was in my upper 20s. And
great.
Everything, I was so happy because that was my first time testing. I've been hesitant on anything, even epigenetic related, because I don't want my code out there. For those reasons. Like maybe
why? Tell me about that. So you don't want your genetic code publicized. Why? Why should the let's educate and enlighten the listener.
So what if so there's a company sale one day or someone goes bankrupt like 23andMe.
23andMe, yeah.
Yep.
Now it's like boom.
Exactly. And now it's everywhere.
But what if your name is Bob whatever Smith?
Then whoever has that information can say 60% of the population has this, 40% has that, 20% has this. And if there's nefarious purposes,
Sure.
You can create a virus, a pathogen, or something to wipe that population out. Now, that might be doom and gloom. That's not where my mind goes, but it is something where I'm like, I don't see the positive to having that information out there. So for me, I've always been very hesitant. So True Diagnostic was for me, the first real genetic test I've gotten done for myself. Mm-hmm. Even though I love all of them, I have nothing against them, I'm just always hesitant about that because I just not sure where my information's going and then what's going to be used with that.
Yeah, the company we use in the UK actually uses British military special forces online security systems. Like the guy who runs their security used to run, I guess, something for the British military.
That's cool.
And he says your data is never stored with your name. Mm. So there's no way to group those together. While I hear you, there's still some consideration around we can see this percentage of the population has this thing. I get it. I just think that would be regardless of your data is there or not, they still have millions of data sets. They can be either you're going to fall into this data set or not.
And that's true. That's completely true.
Yeah.
I think I just like not contributing to certain things, right?
Dude, I get you.
Certain things are you know what? Even if I'm the only one who doesn't do this, voting, I've never voted and I never want to.
Huh.
I don't. Yeah, we're not going to get into that because I'm not a political guy and I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
To me, that's not something I'm interested in. Because I do some work with politicians, I have for years now, and they're great to me, great people to me and my family. Other decisions made, maybe not so great.
Do you know what's interesting to me about politics? I won't go down the path of politics, but I'm so fascinated with what makes people do what they do and believe what they believe, and what makes people change their beliefs. And how can you take someone who used to think this and now think this? And it's just an interesting, I think that's how I'm fascinated about it.
So since you're fascinated by it, let's talk about that real quick. Not politics in general. Yeah. Have you ever looked into Dr. Persinger's work? So this is the God helmet conversation. So this is essentially Dr. Persinger. He was more working, I forget which college, military, all that kind of fun stuff, but he was essentially working to improve people that could actually have the non-localized viewing experiences. Yeah. So he was looking with people to actually modulate the right hemisphere of the brain.
Yep.
So right hemisphere of the brain, in the right circumstance, has about a 7 hertz frequency, right? If you can control that frequency and match up with someone else's, you can connect experiences.
Got it.
They then connected experiences. He has all these, if you look at the pictures, it's these big, ugly biker helmets, yellow and all these electrodes around it. And all he was doing was specifically putting a force around the right hemisphere. So they were having some pretty cool things. Now it's interesting because if you and me both wore them, because you could buy them, I have one at my home. We both wore them, and we were thinking about you would think about a car, right? A red car. I wouldn't, once we could actually connect together, I couldn't see the red car, but I would maybe see an apple because that's red. Or I'd see some big piece of metal because that's what a car is. You wouldn't get the exact interpretation, but the hertz
Broken
frequency
telephone.
Exactly, right? The cool thing about that, though, is then going back to how the world's changed from a magnetic aspect. So since everything's electromagnetic gradients and our bodies are just big toroidal fields, so we're spinning, We're creating that charge, creating that field, right? You see these people that are seeing different changes around that right hemisphere. And I think a lot of it goes back to that hemispheric change. Because then you can start seeing, based off of that specific frequency or vibration, whatever you want to call it, a couple words you can use interchangeably, potentially hypertrophying the amygdala, potentially atrophying the prefrontal cortex. So if you have a red hot amygdala, you're angry all the time. If you have a less than optimal prefrontal cortex, you're not making the right decisions. So we used to mature our prefrontal cortex at 25 years old, right? That was before. Today's society, it's probably 35, 40,
Sure.
like that's when someone matures. So if you see someone screaming at someone all the time, always angry, prefrontal cortex hasn't matured yet. Like that takes a little bit of time to get there. So either way, I think theoretically, those individuals that see a lot of those problems, it's mainly that Hertzian response, that field around that right hemisphere, and then the subsequent change in the cortical region. And I think that because I fixed those problems a lot.
Got it. Bust out the tinfoil hat. I know you have a theory on why this is happening. So, is this an intentional thing? Like, do you think, knowing what you know, do you think there's people out there like intentionally manipulate? I mean, we know they're manipulating people's conscious thought through media, but people are saying like EMFs and 5G towers. What do you have anything? This is going into Jay Campbell territory now.
I do. So I truly believe that everyone's good at heart. I do think there are obviously, because there's polarity. There has to be good, there has to be evil. Positive has to have a negative. There's obviously those negative people, forces, whatever you want to call them, that are using things to control, right? That's happened throughout history. If you look at why 5G is so bad, right? You have this long waveform and you see this frequency that cuts like a knife. So it's so direct like a laser. And it's built upon 4G, which is built upon 3G, which is built upon 2 and 1. So it's not like they built 5 and got rid of 4 and the others. They've been slowly building and building. That's why health's getting worse and worse. So 4G was the smog of electromagnetism, all non-coherent. 5G was the laser cutting through it. Satellite-wise, what is it? It's like maybe a dozen, I forget the specific number for 4G. For 5G, it's like 256 per. So you are amplifying the amount of non-coherent magnetism going on in our environment, and cells are becoming more incoherent, meaning they're getting unable to flux electrons via those stacked polar lipid ends, and we're not able to actually heal. And so you could very easily make the argument where, okay, scroll back in time, everyone is in their house, no one can see what's going on, and let's throw up a bunch of these things, right? And it's not the workers that are doing that. It's not probably the owners of the company, it's who's ever controlling that. So I do think to a degree, there almost has to be. There has to be, to good, you have to have evil. So that almost has to happen.
If you spent any time in like places where there's no electricity or there's no light pollution, the level of healing and the level of sleep it's like absolutely, you'd have to be an idiot to not see it. So I spend a year in Costa Rica, and there's no lights, like there's no like street lights. There's Wi-Fi towers now, but very few of them. Everyone's got Elon Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But the depth of sleep is completely different. The depth of healing is completely different. So as soon as you go there, you're like, oh yeah, like living in a big city is really not good.
And that's where I think this whole biohack and longevity population is going to, where if you know what you're doing, you can get close to that at your house. And to me, it's not these camps of this is the better product to manage EMF, this is the better product to do this or that, because it's so different. You have active, you have passive, and you have dynamic products. So like for our house, we have everything. We've had our level of consciousness measured. It's 550, which is that of like a church or a monastery.
Sure.
And our neighbors are like at 100 or 50.
Sure.
So you see the
So you're measuring like the disturbances, I guess, the things that would block it or interfere with it?
They have companies that will do that,
Got
yeah.
it.
So Life Force, Life Energy, LFLE, they actually do that. And part of them, it's almost like Lila Quantum, how they have the actual quantum upgrade for the house or location. They also will provide the actual level of consciousness testing. And other people can do that.
So did you say Lila? Is that the company?
Yeah.
Are you affiliated with them?
I might have a discount code. I don't even know anymore, honestly. I have so many codes, I don't even want them. People just ask for them.
I'm taking you in the new podcast room. You got to tell me what I got to get to optimize the podcast room.
Okay. Well, so in my pocket, we had a couple things.
You got the Wi-Fi blocker?
I got a lot of things. So this is, camera can see it, right? This is from Blue Shield. Okay, so the EVO Portable. This is an active and dynamic device. So if you hold this button in, it'll turn off, see it kind of powering down, so nothing's happening. When you hold it in, turn it on, powers up, it's now emitting its own coherent frequency. So this is essentially what they did. And they also have like the different devices for your house for a bigger radius. This is more for personal usage when you travel. Holds a charge like forever, by the way, which is awesome. But it's emitting a coherent frequency that's non-repeating. So just like in nature, you'd have, exactly. So it's not even neutralizing, it's more creating a stronger signal for you to hear to blunt out the other sounds and frequencies you're hearing. So that's one. That's an active and dynamic product. Then you have more passive products, right? Where you have something like the Lila Quantum Heal Capsule right here. right? These are more in the quantum side of things. So that's wherever you are, that's more of the ether conversation where you're trying to actually, and they don't disclose how they're, I won't even get into that. But either way, they're essentially having a quantum stack generator location specific, and they can alter the field around you via quantum entanglement. So that's how they're working. So that's the passive device. And then you have something like more of the fractal side
a couple
of
things
more
on
passive.
over there?
I got so much on me. Only these three things. This is the Aries technology.
Yep.
This is getting a lot of steam and popularity. It's cool. Like I have it, my phone's over there, I have it on the back of my phone. It's passive. It's more creating because of the geometry involved. It's then fractionating it and then giving you a different signal coming out.
Have you measured it?
What's that?
Have you measured it?
So biofeedback-wise, yes. I'm still waiting to get the actual. So the problem with this, because they have the EMG studies out there, what that's not measuring is the voltage-dependent sodium channels or calcium channels in the brain, right? So they're not changing actual epigenetics, or they're not measuring them with the Aries technology.
I just mean, are you measuring, like, if you come in with like an EMF meter and you say it's doing this, like, how do you actually objectify this? Or are you just like sort of like hoping?
So it is all subjective.
Yeah.
So the reason why I like have people try it first, like buy the cheapest one you can of the three, Lila Quantum, something from the actual Blue Shield or the Aries. Now, I feel like Lila Quantum and the Blue Shield will give you a little bit more power. The Aries is just enough, but you'll notice a difference. Example, I always tell people, if you buy a Lila Quantum actual block, hide it in your house and tell no one else. I did that, and my wife would walk past this one cabinet. She'd be like, she'd ask me, she's like, for a week, I saw her stop and look. And she just wouldn't look because it was like a cabinet we never used in our old house. And then after a week, she opens up. She's like, Alex, what the hell is this, right? And she's like, why does it feel so different? And I explained it to her. And she's barely into this fitness world as it is. So she was like, okay, Alex is crazy. Then we moved into the new house. And we have 7 quantum blocks in our house because I'm trying to cover every square footage, like trying to make sure that my family's coherent, right? No one slept for 2 weeks, but we all felt amazing. The dogs didn't sleep. The kids didn't sleep. No one slept for 2 weeks. Because what happens, right? If you are changing the coherence of your cells, mitochondria now have less damage to do. They can spin appropriately and they dump ATP. So if you're putting in these devices, don't do them all at one time where you do that. I knew that was going to happen, but I was like, let's just see, right? And then as I slowly stacked these things on top of them, they felt better and better anecdotally. And then you get to the point where we have so much intuition. Like I did Hunter and Taylor Williams' podcast, and I told them, I walked in that room, I was like, Jesus Christ, like it felt terrible in there. Like it felt so heavy, right? Even Mark Bell's podcast back in the day, that was actually the worst one. No offense, Mark. But I walked in, I was like, you could feel it, right? Yep. There's nothing, but you guys don't have a ton of stuff in here, which is perfect, right? There's not that much electromagnetism coming here, at least that I can feel. But no one's like that initially. So I think you get it, and it's like anything else, it's a learned phenomenon.
So I need a giant Lila Quantum in my office?
I would. I mean, you feel the difference. And then on top of that, you can structure your peptides, your water, and everything by putting them into the blocks. So going back.
You actually think it works?
Oh, it does for sure. You can notice a difference. So you can test it.
Yeah, I see these around. I hear about them. I'm a skeptic, right? I'm like,
you should be. Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe I'll pick one up for the office.
So what a cool test. Pick a peptide you know you respond well to. That you could feel a difference if you take too much, like maybe Melantian 2, because certain people get nauseous if they take too much, right? Take that dosage normally, right, for a week off. Then put that vial in the quantum block, 5 minutes. They say not to put your medications in there. I do it all the time, 3 to 5 minutes, it's all you need. All you're fixing is the coherence of the proteins so they can communicate better, right? Take that same dose again for another week, and 9 times out of 10, you'll have more of a negative response at the same dose because it's stronger. It's chemically more coherent. Yeah. But if you have to do that, then okay, there's the feedback you needed. You know, if that doesn't work, try a different peptide. You're not trying to make it work for you, right? But I think that's an easy test where most people, probably 9 out of 10, actually see. And I'm not selling anyone on this.
Yeah, I get it. I think my brain is like, I like to have some objective, subjective matters for sure. Maybe more for other people than others.
And they have all the research out there.
Do they?
They have a decent amount of research from Lila Quantum. Blue Shield has some really cool on the voltage-gated channel changes. That's probably the best one out there, at least I think research-wise, or not best product, but one of the better researches, because you can actually see what's happening. If you hold your phone up to your head, it's like what, 100% increase in those channels. So you're always sympathetic. You put this on and you feel the change being more and more parasympathetic.
Interesting.
So that's measurable.
Yeah. You showed me some things in your bag. You had a methylene blue in there.
Yes.
You a fan?
For the right person, yeah. So the person who would not respond well to that could be someone who has a lot of gut dysbiosis and they get negative changes from that because it can kill off some good bacteria. Not everyone, and dose dependent. Someone who is already taking an SSRI or other nootropics that already drive serotonin, that can happen because the monoamine oxidase changes. They probably wouldn't want to do it or do a lower dose. But the amount of changes you can do to kill the flu virus on contact if methylene is in your system, that's why I take it when I travel. The monoamine oxidase changes, the dopaminergic changes, the driver on what's called cerebral metabolic rate. CMR, right? Cerebral metabolic rate.
CRM.
Yeah, CRM. There you go.
No, it's say MR. You're right.
Whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So driving that dose, your brain to process nutrients and substrate, you don't really get from anything else. Now, the dose is interesting because I think for the nootropic neurological benefits, you're like 20 milligrams, 30 milligrams. Like that's a good range for most people, maybe less. So start low and build up. More of like the longevity changes, like just the mitochondrial changes, that could be done with 5 or 10 milligrams. You could do a milligram daily. If you have someone with like babesia or malaria or like some of those weird diseases, that's more of like 100 milligram. Like doctors have taken up crazy high in the past. That's for dysfunctional populations. So you kind of have this range, mostly in the longevity world, just using it for inflammatory management and neurological health. A couple times per week, 10 to 30 milligrams, find your sweet spot and kind of keep it there.
Now, I saw some research on it negatively impacting endothelium. What have you seen around the nitric oxide production?
So that's more at the higher doses. And so if you're staying usually sub 30, that's not a problem. And if you're taking any basic citrulline, agmatine, or we said the Vinia, the Picete resveratrol, it'll also upregulate endothelial 1, which will stop the down regulation of NO over time. Then that'll kind of cancel that out. So it's a very minor effect, and it usually only happens at higher doses or daily uses built up over time.
Got it.
So it's usually not really a concern.
Yeah, I've been loving it. I take it 2 or 3 times a week, and I'll take somewhere if I'm late in the day, I'll take 8 milligrams. Early in the day, it's like 16. And it feels
so funny
great.
you say that. So 8 milligrams for me after work is like my perfect dose to just kind of calm down, pull down a little inflammation, kind of restore dopamine for the day.
Yep, and still feel like I've got a heightened focus and heightened awareness.
Yep.
Yeah.
So energy to play with the kids and do everything.
Totally. Sometimes at the end of the day, you're like, man, my brain's burnt, my body's burnt. I worked hard. Like I still got a bunch more stuff I got to get done. Little methylene blue.
And that's the perfect time for ketones or methylene blue or some of those other nootropic players where you don't elongate that half-life or plasma concentration too long. You're not stimulated. You have energy, but you can also use ketones to go to sleep. You can use methylene blue to improve sleep patterns.
So it's funny. I was going to ask you that. So I used to use ketone aid, small dose before bed. My deep sleep skyrocketed. Yeah. What's your sleep protocol around ketones?
So lower doses for sure. If we look at all of them, ketone aid is about 2.5 to 5 mil for most people. Ketone IQ would be about half a bottle, so 5 grams. And then the audacious ketones would be half a serving. It's usually about half of what you would normally take. That's enough to drive the deep and REM. And I've seen it even restore sleep architecture. Similar to like a Mizanol, it tends to work pretty well.
What's Mizanol?
Thorne, I believe they have a Mizanol sleep product. It comes from corn, maize, right? And that'll basically restore sleep architecture.
Interesting.
So, yep.
Interesting. What's your go-to for cardiac optimization? I've got a lot of men over 40 who are rebuilding cardiac health. We're obviously doing the autonomic work. We're wanting to rebuild the endothelium. We're wanting to optimize long-term heart outcomes. I mean, at some point, most men are going to get some heart issues. Where's your paradigm around optimization of cardiac function?
So we already said the quarantine, so we won't say that because maybe people don't want to do that. Too annoying. I'd say probably the better bioregular Choleheart, CHEOLHART. And I am not of the traditional paradigm of 10 days on, 10 days off, anything like that. To me, if it's a long-term chronic problem, it needs to be solved with long-term chronic action. So like 1 capsule per day, ideally before bed. That's when remodeling happens. Kind of done indefinitely.
One's enough?
Yeah, one's more than enough because you're protracting it over days, weeks, months, years, that adds up. And what I'll usually tell for people is pick your 3 biggest organ systems you have trouble with, buy the corresponding bioregulator, go through 1 pack of 1 cap per day before bed, then switch to the next one, then go back. You could always have the thymic one in and like the things like that, but I would rather rotate so you're just not having to take too many things.
Man, you're funny because that's literally exactly what Kavitz's lab guide built for me. So he built out a 12-month protocol for me. Mm-hmm. And every month, ongoing, I had endolutin and Vladinix, so pineal and thymus. and then interchangeably for every 30 days, he's like, you rotate through the ones that are most important.
There you go.
Yeah, so at the baseline, it was always Endogluten and Vladinix.
So that's cool for me to hear because I base the majority of what I talk about off of actual experience. I read all the research, all the books. Like I understand the basics and more. Like that's cool. But if it doesn't apply, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And so hearing that confirmation that that's what they were doing in the lab and like what I've seen in application, that's cool to have that merriment of paper and actual reality.
Yeah.
You know?
So
back to the heart, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Coley heart, 1 cap before bed. We'll say no carnitine.
What's that going to do?
So all bioregulators do is they go traverse the cell and just turn on epigenetic expression of healing. So all it does is cause healing. It has no potential to do anything else. That's why it's such a big upside because it literally can't hurt you. It can only help you.
Okay. What else?
Couple different routes. We mentioned MOTS earlier. MOTS of all the mitochondrial peptides seems to have more affinity for cardiac tissue, whereas renal tissue seems to have more of an SS31 affinity. And not so much that it is more attracted to those organ systems, but if they're damaged, they seem to work so much better in those areas specifically. So you could make the argument more, it's like the short open reading frames of the cardiac tissue and the differences to other organ systems, which I've looked into and I might be reaching, I might be, picking at straws there. But in reality, the application is it works 10 times better than anything else for heart tissue. So low dose MOTS, again, 100, 200 micrograms is all you need. Higher doses, unless you have a lot of LVH or cardiac fibrosis or like Purkinje fiber or septum problems, like really end stage heart failure, you don't really need to go higher. It's more of a lower long-term solution for sure. So MOTS would be a really big
What's
player.
long-term on MOTS?
Could be a year.
Really? Every day for a year?
Yeah. Yep. So we would like to first solve the problem, then worry about coming off anything. Nice thing about these peptides is there's no, and I know people talk about the receptor downregulation. In biology, receptors are more likely to upregulate because the body's trying to survive. So you can create more to have more opportunities for ligands to bind to the receptors. So that doesn't hold up all the time for everything. It's different, obviously. But with a lot of these peptides, you can take them pretty much long-term and not have any negatives. The problem, though, is at a certain point, you will waste it. So I think that's why a lot of people who maybe care towards the masses, like the SSRP, for example, right? Again, I don't know them personally, anything like that, but I know a lot of their protocols are not things that I would do. But I'm also not talking to 50,000 people where you have to create one protocol.
Right.
So I think they're putting protocols together for the masses because you can't stay standing forever and teach that, right? You have to have context. So instead you go 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off, or whatever they do. I'm not sure what they do. But that makes sense to me, just as like good practice. But to me, in the peptide, going back to the MOTS in the heart, you could be on it for a year. And if it's needed for that year, it's only going to benefit you. Once you heal the heart, though, maybe you only need it once a week. Maybe it's just like a background potential player. You also might not need it all if you made all the other changes. Because especially in the cardiac world, shying away from like the peptides thing, just a therapy to do, right? Is actually once you can get enough of the strength of the heart back, start doing your high intensity interval training. That blowing out of your lungs, that handles subatomic proton and electron management, and that covers everything. So your heart will get stronger and remodel faster in a better direction if you were to blow your lungs out 2 or 3 times a week. It could only be a couple intervals, but like those 30 seconds on, you need to be gasping for air. You might only do 2 intervals. But like if that's what it takes for you, that's going to remodel your heart more than anything else on top of the other players.
Awesome. Any like natural supplements that you like for heart function?
Lots. I'm going to go with plasmalogens. Plasmalogens, they're like one of my favorite supplements out there. More expensive ones, so obviously they hit the bank a little harder for people, but they're so integral to every system in the body. So first of all, you can't get your plasmalogens through any other source. So number one, we see this deficiency as we actually age, endogenous production goes down. So that starts to happen. We see how critically essential they are for the brain, for the heart, for the liver, for the kidneys, for muscle contractility, for driving beta oxidation of mitochondria properly. They're almost involved in everything. And I don't think the research has even quite said just how cool they are. Like the research is amazing on it. I think it's still like they're about to uncover some cool stuff because I've seen some amazing things in my practice. Or a lot of doctors on it.
Like what?
So if we go in like the cardiac world, we had our peptides and everything in play. We were seeing slow progression, right? Things were moving in the right direction. As soon as we brought in bolus's amount of plasmalogens, we saw rapid recovery in weeks. That was taking us a month beforehand.
Interesting.
And it could have been
consistently, or you said bolus?
So for them, we would do a bolus protocol of like 4 weeks. I normally don't like doing that, but this person was more end stage heart failure, and we had to really kind of get some progress moving a little faster.
Very cool.
But normally I like it as a background long-term player. So if you would do, they're changing the neuroproduct because that neuroproduct is going to be a pharmaceutical compound. It's going through that whole process. They're coming out with a new one, the exact same thing from what I'm understood. I don't think it's on the market yet, but that would be ideally the capsule version. And for most people, 2 caps a day. Like 2 caps of day in the morning because that's the driver for the day, whereas the glia is more of the recovery factor at night, working more on those macrophages and all those kind of.
What company is that?
That is Prodrome.
Prodrome?
Prodrome.
Got it.
I could say these things wrong. I have no idea.
No, it's good. No, I just want to make sure I'm hearing correctly for audience. Fascinating, man. I think that's one of the challenges that I want to make sure I deal with personally and for my clients is making sure we're optimizing cardiac function. Just, everyone's got certain things that are going to take them out, but that one seems to be the one that's relevant for everybody.
Right. And I assume you're already doing the niacins or krill oil, fish oil, like some of the omega-6-3 balancing, things like that, right?
Yep. Not niacin, actually. That's probably the only one that I miss.
That doesn't get a ton of love in the research.
Yeah, no, I hear about it a lot.
Yeah,
it's just
and
so
I
uncomfortable.
see it work so well. It is, it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Especially if you do like the mycotoxin detox protocol you take it before the sauna, you'll dump a ton of endotoxins, but it is terrible.
Yeah.
I did it a couple of times. I didn't have mycotoxins. I just wanted to know what it was like for my clients. It's not fun.
What dose?
So that I only did 500 milligrams, but you could work up to grams of that in that mycotoxin type protocol.
Yeah, I know. I do 500 milligrams and I'm just like a tomato.
Yeah.
And I was working with this dog at the time and he's like, hey man, you got to go 3 to 5 grams. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I wouldn't be able to sit.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm like, no. Very cool, man. How about brain? We didn't touch on brain. So I have a lot of guys who at least self-diagnose as having declining memories.
Yep.
Like their ability to recall information, their ability to recall memory is fading. What are your protocols?
I'm not sure if we talked about off air beforehand, but oxaloacetate from Benagene, Benagene.
For memory.
Gene, yeah.
Or for fluency.
Normally what we start seeing in that whole world, so you almost have a couple different metabolisms going on in the brain. You have like a dopaminergic, serotonergic one over here. You have a couple other ones, but the other big one is the glutamate and the GABAergic. So there's one high, the other one's kind of low. Normally what I see in that world is this glutamatergic level starts to rise, GABA goes down, and then synaptic plasticity also kind of goes out the window. So if glutamate's too high or too low, you can't form memory. You can't fold a protein, right? Or at least in the brain. And so normally pulling that down just to pull down glutamate. 1 or 2 caps in the morning, that's all you kind of need. That will give you a good amount of neurological energy as well. It's more pulling down glutamate over time, right? So find your dose, kind of keep it there. But there's also the neurological fueling side of things. We talked before about the ketone bodies, the acetylcholine, the glucose, the oxygen. That could be a place where if you have the finances buying like superoxygenated water from Inhale, I really like that. If you don't have access to HBOT, which is also more pressure-based, so hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy, this would really supply you with oxygen immediately and kind of give you that immediate neural fueling. Now, that's not something you would use every day in this scenario, but maybe the initial daily for 2 weeks, kind of heal the brain, let it heal itself because it didn't have enough fuel beforehand, and then go ahead and bring it in frequently when you need it.
When we were talking months ago, you mentioned that you use Carbogenetics, the CO2 breather.
Yeah.
Now, you also just said taking oral oxygen and water. So differentiate those for me.
Yes. So first of all, shout out to Carbogenetics. He has a book coming out, which I read before he got sent.
Got it in the back.
Yeah, isn't it good?
I haven't read it.
Oh, it's so good.
It's on the bookshelf.
It's really good. That's a good one to read.
Is it?
I appreciate because he talked about the mitochondrial memory potential in there when no one else did, which is what we talked about earlier at the beginning of the conversation with Metformin, where it's delta, psi, wave function, like assessing mitochondrial, not just membrane permeability, but potential. So everything your mitochondria is the potential. Either way, going back. So let's talk about carbon dioxide first, right? BOR, B-O-H-R, that BOR effect, that's what handles oxygen delivery to tissue and utilization. So with our carbon dioxide, oxygen's not doing too much.
Right.
So traditional carbon dioxide therapy or improvement can come via nasal breathing. So if you ever want another stimulus to your oxygenation potential, if you're an endurance athlete, for example, do breath holds before you actually train or before you have an event. Do, what's his name? The Oxygen Advantage, whatever that guy's name is. He has some cool breath hold protocols.
Patrick McEwen.
Yeah. Super cool guy. At least I think so. Never met him.
He's great.
But those basic breath holds, they can do so much. You could potentiate those with something like hypoxygen, which is a pretty cool compound to drive more hypoxia-inducible factor. Same thing with PICO2, over-the-counter supplement. Hypoxia-inducible factor goes up. You can also inhale carbon dioxide. So when you inhale carbon dioxide, 4 to 8% concentration, you can do some cool things. Beyond just improving the oxygenation and tissue delivery of oxygen, you can perforate and puncture holes into tumor cells. So we were talking about beforehand, there's one to put on your list. It'll go ahead.
With breathable CO2?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can actually, an individual, I did some work with, basically had it set up as like a chamber. So you have a chamber of carbon dioxide, people be working in that inhalation of carbon dioxide for extended periods of time.
Won't it shift pH
Yes, oh, for sure.
toward acidity?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
what you want.
That's what you want for cancer?
In that scenario, you're trying to use that pH-based flux to puncture holes into the tumor and then come out and allow an adaptation period. Because if you do it too long, pH shift goes too high, and then you get like it's not brain, it's a headache. It's not a migraine, but just a really weird headache that's hard to describe. You'll notice that pH shift, then you stop for the day, come back the next day. But usually that means you've gone too far. It's harder to really shift pH to that degree. But with obviously a gas, you can't overdo that. It's only capped at 8% though. You go up to 10%, 12%, that's when the problems come in.
Does the carbogenetic machine allow you to manipulate percentage?
Yes, but only up to 8%. So you can stay out of that danger zone.
Okay, you basically just need like the soda.
Yeah, you can buy the soda streams or go to your local place. I wanted to go to a local place, and I told them I was using it for because they asked, and they're like, you can't do that, we can't sell this to you. I'm like, why? They're like, you're gonna kill yourself. I was like, it's my life, let me do it. I got a machine, which they didn't like that. And then after that, I just bought the soda stream off Amazon because it's easier. I just have it on subscription now.
Okay. How often are you using it?
I personally use that about every single day.
Wow.
Monday through Friday. Ideally, I try to do it on the weekends, but with family time and everything, I don't do that to do other therapies.
And no such thing as overdoing it until you get a headache?
Pretty much no. Huh. That's the nice thing about it. Because, we talked about oxygenation changes, talked about puncturing tumor cells. To me, I like that as a long-term anti-cancer aid. Because there is a tumor, I'm going to puncture a hole in it, let my immune system take care of it before it even becomes a problem. That's those. Remember good old blood flow restriction training? What really caused the anabolic stimulus from that, right? It was all carbon dioxide locally in that area. So post-workout, your bodybuilders can take it to drive local anabolics and potentiate that effect. Pre-workout, you do it to improve the oxygenation to allow you to have more of a glycolytic-based session, right? You can use it to then improve mitochondrial functionality in the brain, specifically because you're inhaling it, amygdala, hippocampus, right? Like we talked about beforehand. And you can use that to fold memories more efficiently. I do that with inhalable molecular hydrogen as well. You can kind of interchange those to fold memories more efficiently with them inhaled.
Interesting. How long is your protocol?
So the inhalable hydrogen is a little bit different. We'll talk about that in a second. The CO2 therapy, you could do 10 minutes a day at about work up to 8%. 8%, 10 minutes a day, you could do that long-term and not have any problems. If you could do longer, there would be a little more benefit, but I think 10 minutes is easy for most people to stick to. Anyone could put that on and watch TV.
What's your single favorite modality if you were to have like one? Oh, I know the answer already. Let's go there.
Okay. So the ARC PEMF from, I almost screwed up his last name, Brandon Amalani. Super nice dude. Like we've talked a lot ever since I bought that, even before, like just really nice guy. I actually didn't know who he was over a year ago, and he had done a consult call with me. I helped out with some stuff on the back end. It's just cool how everything comes full circle. Actually, Jay connected us, and I didn't reach out to him for like months after that. But eventually it led me back to the ARC. And so why is this PEMF technology different? First of all, if you look at it, it's literally lightning in a box. Why that's important to say is going back to the Tesla days where he would do all of his learning and all of his work in his lab with lightning bolts shooting above his head, right? Not just the oxygen or the ozone release, which you're getting some inhalable, which might not be the best thing for your lungs, but you're not getting any significant degree. It's because of the electromagnetic field it creates. So you have this box, right? Energy will come in through the house. It'll hit this, if you actually look at the actual plasma generator in there, this is where you're combining noble gases. They have their own proprietary formula, obviously. Combine noble gases, you get basically diffusion of oxygen. It splits, goes through the actual applicator, hits the applicator, hits your body. Electricity has to form a magnetic field around it. So you can basically have these transverse fields. You can have these longitudinal fields, right? So you can have more of these longitudinal, more like straight wave forms versus more of what we'll call like the scalar wave potential. So although and not all scalar waves are, this is getting a little bit deep, not all scalar waves are healthy. It's generally seen as like the healthier waves to improve cellular coherence. What we're looking at utilizing this device for is mainly that, cellular coherence. So think about that like just saying a healthy cell.
Sure.
So all the cells in your body, you have one end, hydrophilic and lipophilic end. They flux electrons back and forth. As you become more dysfunctional, they don't flux electrons. The cell membrane itself gets weaker and weaker. So you can take all the NT factor, all the phosphatides, everything in the world. It doesn't matter if the magnetic gradient around them isn't accounted for. So to fuel...
Like structured water and this...
Exactly, right? So now it's all coming together. So If you improve the magnetic field around them, the cell becomes coherent again. It fluxes electrons. It heals itself. It's called magnetoporation. Magnetoporation basically like shakes it, right? It vibrates it out so any endotoxin dumps out. The cell membrane becomes slightly permeable to dump these endotoxins out, closes it back up, and then only lets more healthy constituents in when it's actually coherent.
Man, how are you gonna talk so highly about this thing and not bring it with you?
Because it's massive. I'll be going out to New York on Thursday, like we talked about, and I'll be bringing that out because I'm driving. But it's big. And since it is 25 grand, I'm not bringing that on a plane, letting like someone confiscate it or take it or break it, you know?
Yeah.
But it is cool. And the depth of field penetration too, I think that's massive. So depending on the setting you have it at, which can't really do it here because you don't have the visuals, but you can get it either so deep into the bone or the muscle tissue or the dermal layer or deep into the cellular level. So you can pick the intensity and the depth of field penetration.
Have you heard of the biocharger?
I have. And so different. Same category, but completely different.
Yep.
So if you look at cold electricity, that is what we talk about more like the ARC device. That's more creative, constructive frequencies. You have things like Klotho coils or Rife technology or the biocharger. It's more hot electricity. Those are more deconstructive waveforms. Now, the deconstructive sounds bad, but it's not. It kills off pathogens, bacteria. It does so many things, but it doesn't do the cellular coherence. So like I used to use my Klotho coils all the time because that's all I had access to. Didn't have the ARC at the time. I've gotten away from the Klotho coils only because I have the ARC. That doesn't mean that the Klotho coils or the biochargers are useless. They're not. If you have a pathogen, bacteria, sickness, you can kill it off with that thing. The Rife technology, that's what it does.
And it's funny. There was a lady who was coming here who had, I think, just really advanced Lyme. I could be wrong.
Ooh, okay.
But she said this is the only thing in the world that would heal her. She came every day. She's like, literally, she drove from, I think, 45 minutes away because we're the only one locally. She'd come every day. She had some like really advanced, I think it was Lyme. It may have been something else. But crazy that's, it's in line with what you're saying.
Yeah, that's how it works. And again, it's cool to a certain point. If you don't have any problems, then you're just causing deconstruction. And like the whole thing, I think comparing like deconstructive explosive physics to more implosive structured water-based physics is, to me, this universe is less about pulling apart than it is putting back together. So healing can come from pulling apart at certain times, but there should be more pulling back together.
Right. I have one question to ask about peptides.
Yep.
What's happening? What do you believe is happening right now in the space with respect to the FDA and legalization? Yeah. Is this a space that do you think is going to continue to explode, or is the FDA going to put the blinders on? I think you might have some unique insights there.
Yes. Trying to think how to word it. So it will continue to explode. It's already way too popular. Too many people know about it. There's too much access.
Yeah.
It can never be stopped at this point. So this was 2021 or 2, if I remember. I believe it was Eli Lilly, it was Eli Lilly, not Pfizer. They were already started their investigations to peptoids. So that was going to be precursor synthetic molecules to release your own version of endogenous BPC and TB. That was years ago. I haven't heard any updates on that. I heard they ran into some problems because the whole game plan that I was told, and this was from people that work in there, we have good relationships and everything, was that make it impossible for anyone else to get. We make our own, then we already have the demand, so we create the supply. Which, if they were to do that, I don't care, because then everyone can have peptides. Everyone's healthier, insurance pays for it. They make money, but at least people are healing. The problem with that is then in the process, they're trying to make sure no one can get it at all. So it's like we have to be the only people. And even from the compounding pharmacy route, that's still not quite above boards. It's still kind of gray right now, still gray area. But it's almost grown too much. It's too big. And although they will come out with their peptoids, that'll be for probably 20% of the population that don't know or don't have access to good, high quality other peptides.
So it's a precursor.
Exactly. Yeah. And they may or may not work better or worse. Like no one knows. We haven't tried them out yet. I haven't had any access to them. I don't know what molecules they're creating. I believe the first one was obviously BPC 157. That seemed to be on paper the easiest one to synthetically drive, to put a patent on it. But regardless, I don't see that ever being the 100%, because you can still find some really good companies that are not coming through compounding pharmacies that provide amazing products. Then you also, if you don't want to go that route, you also still have compounding pharmacies. And I don't see them being able to shut everyone down, because for every one that shuts down, 10 more are going to pop up. Like, I can't tell how many people I work with right now that they're also on peptides.
Everywhere.
And I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't even know you were doing that. I'm like, just be careful,
Yeah.
I think if you are in that space, if you avoid the GLPs, if you avoid SS31, the things that are pharmaceutically now going to potentially have problems on that side legally, no one's getting in trouble for BPC or TB, but they are getting in trouble for retatrutide, interzepatide, and SS31.
Well, where they're getting in trouble also is when doctors are prescribing
Yes.
their patients to do things that are research use. I've seen a lot of people getting taken down lately. Nobody seems to be attacking the research companies. They seem to be attacking the doctors who are like, oh, take this Chinese company, which is not a legitimate thing. So that's a big problem.
Yeah. And I feel bad in that circumstance
Totally,
for both parties. Because it's like, it could be a crap product, but they're also trying. Like, at least they're trying to make people healthier. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, totally right. But that's one of the challenges with having a medical license is like, you got a medical license, so you got to make sure you stay within the law.
That's why I'm not a doctor.
Totally. Stay within the confines of the medical license. You have been training a long time, put on a lot of muscle. What does your current approach to training look like? Knowing you want to be big, you want to be muscular, but you also want to optimize for longevity.
So for me personally, it's kind of like we said earlier, right? It's kind of doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So I have weight strength training in the morning, and then more in the afternoons, the second session of the day, and it's the HIIT work, mobility work, more the dynamic-based work, right? Reflexology, like basic stuff. And then I'll have layered on top at the end of those sessions some kind of a healing therapy. So post-workout from the strength training, I'll do my halotherapy. Halotherapy is the inhalable salts, which technically in that window you wouldn't want for the anti-inflammatory benefits, but so lung dependent, like you'll still get some lower lung circulation with nasal breathing, but it's more localized to the lungs, so you never get any kind of sickness.
Tell me about this. What is this?
Yeah, so halotherapy. So this was back like, I forget when the years were, but this was back with the salt mines. So people in the salt mines were working, never got sick. Like, why aren't they getting sick there? They tested it was the inhalation of all the salts, where the salts were just
That's like what a salt room is then. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So instead, it is Clear Light, because I have their sauna. Clear Light makes a portable halotherapy, little like $300 device or whatever, and that you'll get little cartridges, put the salt water in, you'll basically breathe it for like 15, 20 minutes. And I've been doing that for a year straight, and I haven't gotten sick for a year. That's obviously not the only factor, but I'd always get respiratory sicknesses. That was my rate limiting factor. Ever since doing that and Thymogen Alpha-1 daily, haven't gotten sick in a year straight. So
You're still doing Thymogen Alpha-1 daily, the oral.
Yep. I'll do that usually morning-ish, depending on the day. And then halotherapy is always post-workout from the session. Then the second session, after I do all of my other longevity work, the rebounding work and everything, that's where I'll fluctuate based on the day. I'll always try and do the arc no matter what, because that PEMF technology for me, like 10 to 30 minutes, and I hold such a large mitochondrial charge that if I don't ground before bed and dissipate that charge, then I will be up, because I didn't do that for the first couple weeks of using it. And
Are you grounding outside or are you doing it in the house?
Outside, for sure.
Just go put your feet in the grass.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that in a second too.
Yeah.
And then I'll also do my sauna. For me, I'm weird about my sauna though. I can only handle like 130, 135 degrees. Like that for me.
Handle meaning what? Like you just like
more, and I just deplete, feel terrible. It's not like a Herx response or anything. It's just too hot for me, and I don't feel as good when I do a little bit less. That being said, fairly optimized. My microplastic levels are super low. Like everything's pretty good. So it's more of the uncoupling effect you get, and then the releasing, because mitochondria will hold infrared light, and then that actual exposure and the heat will cause it to dissipate, right? So all the other outdoor exposure then adds up to there to allow it to actually dissipate. So then I'll either do something like the inhalable molecular hydrogen or inhalable carbon dioxide or something else. And that's kind of how the majority of my days are Monday through Thursday. That's the rough setup.
How does an average person at home know how to start all this? You're like, he's got such an advanced knowledge, and you're like, oh, I got to do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Like, where should an average person sitting home start?
Starting place, I do 1 to 2 hypertrophy or strength sessions per week, depending on what you're personally going for goal-wise. I'd probably do 3, maybe 3 sessions of what longevity means to you. Meaning it could be more HIIT work. It could be the rebounding, like do different things, get your body in different positions. That doesn't have to be long. That could be 20 or 30 minutes. But doing that about 3 times per week, I think is a good overall starting point, right? So you start there. That's all you have to do, and then walk outside. Ideally in the morning to get first light exposure to set up cascades for the day. Now, I don't get too finicky about if you can't see the sunrise over the horizon. That's the best case scenario, but certain people would have to drive 30 minutes away just to see that.
Sure.
So to me, applicable things. Walk every day, hypertrophy or strength 2-ish times per week, and then the other longevity work, HIIT work, or anything like that, about 3 times a week.
But I'm talking about these other modalities that you sort of throw in there as well.
Oh, yeah, the healing stuff.
Yeah, like how do I know which one's going to be most beneficial for me?
So if let's assume this person doesn't have blood work, no testing at all, right? I think the most universally accepted would probably be the magnetic work. So if you cannot get the arc, there's still other PEMF technologies out there that are still beneficial. It's not nearly as good. It won't drive the same cellular coherence, but even the worst PEMF mat on the market is still going to drive blood flow. It's still going to drive some kind of lymphatic drainage.
Sure.
So to me, base it off your budget, but I would start with electromagnetism.
Is there any negatives to PMF?
If you have a heart problem or anything, no metal on your body or in your body,
right.
That'll make a big difference, obviously. But as long as that's not present, then no.
I've heard some people speak about, I'm blanking on the term, but basically like dirty EMF or dirty electricity.
Yep.
And so if you go over like a PMF mat, and some of them have like, dirty, I don't know how to differentiate. Yeah. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So first of all, this really wasn't a problem until 5G, because we have the grounding line in our house. They're called transients, the little spikes that need to be there, like half a volt, like not much, right? That's normal. 5G came along and it's so strong, it'll modulate that transient to be stronger than ever. So that ground line that should basically be zero ground, right? It's not anymore. So you're picking up on that when you plug a grounding device into the wall. So not only that, but when you plug it into the wall, electricity, remember, you have to create a magnetic field around that. That creates a more incoherent field of basically negative energy. And so what you do, the best case scenario, you would get like a sine tamer. You can get that from, I think, Blue Shield.
What's it called?
Sine tamer, SINETAMER.
Yep.
That's basically a device for the house. So it stops it at the source. A lot of the other ones you plug into the wall, they're still good, still better than nothing, but you're still having it come into the house and you're not getting the same effect. You're not able to pull as much of those transients down on that actual ground line. There's more to it, but basically, ideally, you would get the sine tamer. I think it's like $1,000, so pretty applicable for most people. You have to have your electrician install it, obviously, but if not, at least get something for the actual sockets in the wall.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of your, just through our conversation, it sounds like a lot of your focus, maybe you started doing it unconsciously now, goes toward electromagnetism, goes toward like grounding, like things that are influencing vibration. I don't think most people are thinking about that.
And I think it's because, like, I feel, at least from my perspective, I feel like we have like mastered the supplements and peptides, and there's always new ones. Like that's always part of the conversation. Sure. But I think everything else is not talked about so much.
Agree.
Right? Like we're coming out with so many new molecules as is, like the Klotho protein peptide ones, the Floxo 3s.
You mentioned Klotho, and I know that's sort of become a big thing right now. What's your thoughts? What's your opinion? Safety profile, efficacy profile, should the average person be looking at it?
I don't think the average person should be looking at it. Although it would have benefit for everyone, I think you kind of have to graduate up, not because it's safety profile, but because it is kind of a higher tier compound. At least right now, it's very hard to source. So that's also another problem, and the price point's really high. So I don't think it's for your low tier person. If you look at the Klotho gene expression stuff they're doing now, which really no one has access to, there's still so few people that are doing that, we are not sure. I think it holds a lot of promise, but we're still figuring that out. Recombinant Klotho, like Alpha Klotho, that's been around for like, a decade, 15 years, something like that or more. That's perfectly fine. Works amazingly well, but the dosage, usually the frequency is the problem. If you take too high of a dose, which it's dosed at like micrograms, like 1, 5, 10, 20, super, super low, too much will cause more vascular calcification and generally cause like cardiac and vascular problems. So you would only take that like very infrequently. So I saw a lot of good benefits of using it with people, but then I kind of realized like there's almost too big of a margin of error window here. So I thought, okay, what if we could find the peptide version of that? Stumbled upon figuring out Klotho protein peptide 1. Then you realize there's a 4, there's a 6, there's all these varieties that are endogenously produced and released.
What benefits are people seeing from Klotho?
So this is where it's triggering the FGF complex expression, protein kinase B and C. You're seeing autophagy, mitophagy, cell survival. Like the problem with Klotho is it does everything. But the cool thing about it is it does everything. So you take it before bed, sleep goes up, HRV goes up, overall blood flow and hemodynamics goes up because we see a lot of erections happening, better males and females, which is super cool. Overall recovery, joints that used to feel bad now feel better. I've had a lot of people that take a little bit of nandrolone just for their joint health. They stop taking it because their joints repaired that much faster. And so like in an overall like longevity molecule, that could be the one that everyone takes. Low dose, longer term, you can't take time off as a means of good practice, but it's not overdriving the system to cause overexpression, number one, so no negative side effects. And there's no like endogenous production problem because it's a peptide.
So safety profile, I think, is extremely high.
Yeah. We've worked it up to 10 micrograms per kilogram of body weight, and that's more for people that have the finances. And it seems to definitely keep working better. I don't think a lot of people need that though. Usually about 100 micrograms. That's like the sweet spot for most people.
100 micrograms total.
Pretty much.
Got
yeah,
it.
daily.
Daily.
Yep.
Days off?
I don't think you need it because those are just days you are not healing yourself. I think a day when you don't have that much burden of chemical stress, trauma, whatever, then that's the day you don't really need it. But I almost feel like if you only had to pick one peptide of all of them, like I'd probably give someone that.
Interesting.
Like only one peptide, that'd be like the lifelong thing. Because I see that having the biggest change to biological ages and pretty much everything. But again, I still don't think most people should try it now because of the accessibility and the price point.
How about follistatin?
I feel like the variations are slowly getting better and better, but they've never lived up to the Belgian blue stuff. Like we've never seen anything inhibit myostatin to that degree. I think exogenous growth hormone, given the Decarin changes, I almost see that modulating myostatin more than follistatin. Some of the newer ones are still better than the old ones, and they're getting there. It's slowly again. I think we're like a couple iterations away from that, but I also don't know how much follistatin and myostatin is that big of a deal. So like in the bodybuilding community, modulating myostatin, because we've done that with tadefkrep alpha, which was my personal favorite myostatin inhibitor.
What's it called?
Tadefkrep alpha.
Okay, never heard of it.
It's annoying to spell, but TA, right? So tadefkrep alpha for the people, because this is a small sample size, less than 100 people. With TA, the individuals that were hyperandrogenic, taking gram plus, right? Traditional male, bodybuilding doses and or higher, they almost really saw no changes, right? Whereas the people that are just on HRT or natural, they got cycle-like effects. So to me, at a certain point, the androgen load is so high, myostatin is not even in the conversation. So I don't think bodybuilders or powerlifters or strongmen necessarily need to worry about myostatin as much. But I do think the longevity community and people that are not doing that, I think that's what's going to thrive. It's going to be like the person who's 60 or 80 years old, where they're going to really thrive with it.
Interesting. Have you been following the research on gene editing for follistatin?
Yes.
What's going on there?
Man, it's kind of clumped in with Klotho. I feel like we're still waiting to see exactly how it's working out, because I don't think the traditional gene editing we're seeing, the most people that get the certain type of gene editing that's going on, they're seeing some initial body composition changes and then no long-term changes to the immune system or anything.
Yeah, I know maybe a little less than 10 people that have done it. That's the exact feedback.
Yeah.
Some people put a little muscle on, and like, I feel good, 5-10 pounds. I'm like, that's pretty good. Yep. But yeah, a little body composition, but nothing sustainable.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's cool. So it's like, okay, what's the
next?
But
not for 25K.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was, I don't know if that's still the price point, but that was the price point.
I think it's 20 or 30 still.
Yeah, that's seemingly a little excessive.
Yeah, I agree.
I know you were one of the first people talking about SLUPP. I'd love to hear what that is, why we should use it, why we shouldn't use it, who should use it, if it's a useful addition.
Yeah, so the estrogen-related receptor tech product, it holds a special place in my heart because it does a little bit of everything. So one of the coolest things a lot of people tend to overlook is it drives NRF1 and 2. So NRF1 and 2, which everyone knows, causes your mitochondria to release its own antioxidants. So it self-cleans your mitochondria, number one. In terms of a millivoltage potential, it'll push the millivoltage potential of your mitochondria to a higher degree. What that means is the lower your millivoltages are, the less functioning mitochondria is, to a certain degree, obviously. So it'll push up those millivoltages better. So if mitochondria work better, then everything happens more efficiently. Energy production, fat loss, nutrient partitioning, brain function, everything. I've applied it with so many people now since 2018 or 2019 that I've seen applications for it on sexual tissue, so some topical transdermals, for like penile fibrosis and even clitoral fibrosis. It doesn't happen as often, but in like the adult industry, some of those people I work with, there's some sexual health benefits or functions we got to fix over there.
Taking orally?
No, topically? That'd be more topically.
Interesting.
We've tried eye drops. That was a disaster. The oral preparation tends to still drive mitochondria in the eyes just as efficiently, so that can improve your eyesight. But it's also potentially more just the changes to glucose metabolism. Because if you have a big, heavy carb and you can't utilize it, you kind of look blurry, like things aren't as crisp and clear. So it might just be that. But we do see the ocular changes. The overall driver on glycolytic fiber type transformation and a lactic fiber type transformation. So it's supposed to only be a glycolytic fiber type player, but I've seen it increase strength expression in powerlifters and strongmen like crazy.
So at what dose?
That could be as low as 200 micrograms.
Why are these guys saying 200 milligrams?
So
because they're converting from animal data.
Yes. So this is the first podcast I'm saying this publicly. I haven't wanted to say it just because I don't like drama. The first death from a peptide came from 20 milligrams of SLU PP332 done twice per day. And that happened last year. There's still not to this day been a piece about it. No one's talked about it. I'm not going to talk about who did it, where, whatever. I don't want to get into that. But what happens whenever you hyperpolarize to that degree with SLU is you'll become massively tachycardic, 300 beats per minute, and then go to 40 or 30 beats per minute bradycardic. And you'll go back and forth like that for 24 hours, and eventually heart basically gives out. So that was the first death that I don't believe has been reported, and I haven't wanted to talk about it publicly because I don't want to start that. But I think at this point, it's like, it should be said, but the caveat with that is there are people that do respond well to those high doses of SLU. So my whole argument to that is start low and build up. Start a couple hundred micrograms, build up. If you get to 1 milligram, then okay, go to 2 milligrams, 3 milligrams. Take bigger jumps, but going straight from 1 milligram to 100 milligram, I just don't think it's good practice. And that's nothing negative about companies making those products or those doses. Yeah. But to me, I don't see the negative to starting low and building up. Like,
why wasn't it publicized? Nobody knows?
Only people that I've told.
Huh.
I know the family.
Was there other things involved? Because often that's the case, right? This guy was obviously doing, not obviously.
This was a longevity individual, basic HRT, like no problems with anything else. And this was the only change.
You think it was a genetic predisposition or just a...
I don't know, obviously.
Right.
I just feel like, it's kind of 1 + 1 = 2.
Sure.
It kind of was very obvious. That was the only change. And with SLU PP332, you get that tachycardic response if it's too much for you. So for me, I used to be able to work up to 1 milligram-ish, like 750 micrograms. And now I hyperpolarize, but even I get a little tachycardia, and people will get that at certain doses if they take too much. The problem is it's too much for them, right? So that could be like, now I'm down because my mitochondria has gotten healthy over time. So if you are using these peptides right, you should technically need less over time because you're at a higher millivoltage, your mitochondrial potential is higher, so you should technically need less if you're using it properly. And so I'm down to 200 micrograms only Monday through Friday.
You're doing it 5 days a week?
Yes. Yeah, and then I'll take the weekends off and go with some Watsi.
Man, you take a lot of stuff. Are you not concerned? I'm sure you would have a depth of understanding of like interactions of all these things. There's got to be like, yeah, I'm sure you spend a lot of time thinking about it.
I have, yeah. So that's why. So every time I've gotten a client check-in or someone's emailed me about any interaction, positive, negative, whatever, I go over to my graph and chart and I put that in. And I've done that for every single supplement, peptide, training modality, therapy for the past 14 years, like since I started this when I was like 18 years old. And I just, again, I don't know why, but I just thought it was a good idea. I thought this is how I'm going to learn, right? And so like BPC, I have over 16,000 case studies on that. Where over 14 years, I've logged it, put it over there, logged it, put it over there. And it's obviously not 100% accurate because I've changed and programs got updated and things might get confused. Not everyone was a client. Some people just reached out to me. But I tried to weed out what I thought was real and what was fake. I left out some of the extreme cases.
So based on that, what's something surprising that most people want to know about whatever, some of the notes you've recorded? Like maybe there's people perpetuating, hey, this is generally great, but this is what happened. What comes up as some examples?
A good one, growth hormone. Exogenous growth hormone in the longevity community. When taken at a proper dose, I have seen the most insane changes to repairing of mRNA lining of the kidneys, so EGFR, of improving hepatic functioning, of fixing cardiac myopathies. You name it, I've seen it help. Now, dosage is obviously important there. We're talking about like, for most women, it's usually half the dose for males. So most males, like longevity-wise, 2 IUs or under if you're being like really harsh. If you're kind of like a quasi in between like me, where I'm kind of still an athlete, but kind of still longevity, it's right at 3 IUs. Can't really argue that more than that as a male is not going to have something long-term. I haven't seen it, but still potential. Females about an IU to an IU and a half, max. They can even be a quarter of an IU or half an IU.
For what duration of time?
What's that?
For what duration?
I'm a bigger fan of taking it daily because you're having the non-genomic action
ongoing
happening now. Yeah. And you can look at that with like growth hormone deficient, or no, people that have utilized exogenous growth hormone clinically for years and then they pull them off. Endogenous production kicks back on within 24 hours.
Yeah. So
there's no real endogenous downregulation. There's temporary blunting, but not real downregulation.
Any concern with thyroid downregulation, insulin resistance?
Not at those doses, but everyone responds differently. So if you are in that percentage where you get some kind of glucose dysfunction or edema, anything like that, then yeah, lower the dose, you're taking too much, or you're just a poor responder. But that's probably, if you're using the dose properly and already starting off with a good, healthy position, that's probably less than 5%.
I think I might have been the world's greatest responder to growth hormone.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was nuts. I would take 6 IUs a day at my peak. The highest I ran was 6. Usually I would take 3, but my highest dose was 6. And my body just was nuts.
Yeah.
Like I haven't taken it in years, but it's, it was
It's funny you say that because I was always a responder to nandrolone and growth hormone.
Yep.
And so now I'm
Big
on a
responder
3
to
IUs of growth hormone. But like I'd work it up 6, 10, like in better and better and healthier and healthier. But then at a certain point, you're like, okay, like no, at a certain point there's going to be negatives, so I'm sticking to that 3 and under.
Is there any truth to rotating the type of growth hormone? Because they have. I've heard like this one's got this many amino acids. This one. Have you ever had any experience there?
So it's not so much the amount of amino acids because it should all be 191 if it's like a traditional 22 kilodalton product.
Sure.
So you're not mixing isoforms, which we do, but that's not here. In that way, it's not the amino acid profile. It's more of the resonance spin of the molecule because it is like humotrope compared to genotrope. Like people respond massively better or worse, not because it's a different hormone, because it's spinning at a different molecular way. So your vibratory patterns pick up with it better than another. So in that case, I don't think it's a matter of rotating, but I do think trialing them all out. Yeah, you'll find that one. You're like, oh, I'm dry. My sleep is better. I feel better. Joints are better. I'm leaner. Like that's the one that you.
I found some would just destroy my digestion, like maybe bloated all the time, and some of them I just got really big. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, like fast.
Yep.
It was crazy. Like as soon as I started taking that, it was like I became a different person, physically, not necessarily mentally.
And then you can potentiate those with growth hormone peptides.
Well, you take them at the same time?
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
let's walk through those because there's a lot. And, I think I'm relatively well-versed, but I'd love to hear I'm sure you've got some depth to add there.
Yeah. So hypothalamus arcuate nucleus goes through hypophyseal portal system, goes into more of the anterior pituitary. Those are somatotrophs. So if you look at a growth hormone-releasing hormone versus a peptide, you'd normally argue hypothalamic versus anterior pituitary action. In reality, they'll both stimulate those somatotropes in the arcuate nucleus to different degrees. So in reality, they're working on both, but they have different action. A releasing hormone, more like your CJCs, right? They're testosterone. Those will more release the pulse, and then the peptide more potentiates the pulse, while also blunting somatostatin, and then having more ghrelin or growth hormone secretagogue receptor interactions. So normally you take them both to potentiate them.
Yep.
So basics like that be true. Do you remember him back on the day on the forums?
I've heard it. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know him personally, but I always want to give him credit because he was like the original growth hormone peptide guy.
Interesting.
Everyone learned everything from him.
Is he still around?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, he went to jail, all that stuff, and then I forget when he passed. But yeah, he was like the OG for growth hormone peptides.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I was never on the forums. I never did the forum thing.
Yeah, I came up in the forums and then they kind of died, and that's when I kind of got out of it. I don't know if they're still big now, but
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
But either way, so going back to the growth hormone and the peptides, you could take it because those peptides will potentiate and increase the receptivity of growth hormone receptors. So normally, first pass delivers 60, 90 minutes. So you take your growth hormone peptides 60 or 90 minutes before your exogenous growth hormone.
Interesting.
In order to take less exogenous growth hormone for one reason or another, but get the same effect. So to time it for people, it's super simple if you want to time it before bed. When you go in to do your nighttime routine, growth hormone peptides first, shower, brush your teeth, poop, like whatever you do normally before bed, usually 6 or 9 minutes later, at least being a parent having kids, because you just shut down the house, take the dogs out, then take your growth hormone before bed, and then you kind of have the best environment introducing your growth hormone.
With BPC, are you adding that in from time to time to increase?
You could do that. Yeah, exactly. So that'll also then modulate heat shock protein 90 on androgen receptors. So it'll make it more receptive to binding to ligands. So it'll technically make your androgens work even better on top of potentiating.
Androgens or growth hormones?
Androgens on top of potentiating your growth hormone receptors.
Okay.
So it'll increase the sensitivity. So it's doing both of those.
Interesting. So bodybuilders
not
are
to
taking
like
BPC.
an insane degree, but still noticeable.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. Any negative effects you think for people taking growth hormone, other than like at low doses, relatively safe?
Low doses are extremely safe. Going back to the surprising thing, I think of everything, because I know people got on about like the increase in intracranial pressure, which happens acutely in everyone because of oligodendrogenesis, the process of your brain creating new oligodendrocytes, which literally make your brain function and stay healthy.
Right.
So you almost have to have that slight increase, and it goes away after the first couple weeks normally. But at a low enough dose based on the person and their needs, I've only seen it be beneficial.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And I'm always, as I said, like looking for reasons to be skeptical. But growth hormone's one of those. I'm like, man, I just think it's ubiquitously great. If you overdo it, everything's going to be a problem. But like, I've never seen any, well, because, there's people talk about cancer, right?
Yeah, that is true. That's true.
Yeah.
Right, so if you do have a tumor, then obviously it's going to proliferate it. Any somatropic compound is going to do that.
So when you say obviously, from what I've seen, there's only one research study that showed it actually increased proliferation of cancer. Is there multiple?
There's a lot, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, growth hormones as a whole, they're going to cause global proliferation, anything. So usually tumors, they'll start pulling, they'll get very efficient because they want to survive. So they'll increase vascular cascades to pull more nutrients inward. They'll start sucking everything in circulation. Now the growth hormone doesn't go to your bicep or your calf, it goes to your tumor. So the interesting thing about that though, is also anecdotally, because people say it causing cancer, which it can't do. Look at every bodybuilder out there. How many cancer cases have there been in bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongmen?
None.
Exactly. Like maybe some, but it wasn't the growth hormone that caused that. There's like maybe less than 10 people or so that I know of in the history of all these sports. So it's not growth hormone dictated. It can only make the problem worse if it's already there.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Like there was a couple of people who had like stage 3 or 4 and it pushed it.
Which makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And so if someone does have cancer, avoiding GH, BPC, GHK, what else?
So BPC 157 can drive mitogen activated protein kinase, which can actually have apoptosis.
Interesting.
Tumors, which is cool.
Does it increase VEGF to increase?
Not in tumors. It'll be more selective than that, which is pretty cool. TB500, there's no positives to it causing issues with tumors, or there's no positives to killing cancers, but there's no negatives to it. So TB is kind of more than fine to take. GHK is another one you can improve stem cell migration.
But not VEGF, again, not going to increase vascularization?
Specifically to the tumor, no. That's
how do we differentiate? How do I know that it's going to drive capillarization in general tissues and not in cancer tissues?
Because I've done it a couple hundred times.
Huh.
And by the way, when I first started this, if you look at mechanistically, it has the potential, like BPC is a good example, to either drive apoptosis or drive proliferation. It has either potential. So clients would come to me, we're working through things, and they're like, I just have to try this.
So it might be genetic, or not even physiological. It might not be genetic. It may be like, hey, you're in this state, so there could be individual differences.
Correct. Yeah, most definitely. Especially in the tumor-based world, it's not that easy to talk about like this in this setting, because if you aren't managing glutamate, then that storm can cause metastasization. If you are pushing like the telomerase hard, then you're also growing that tumor cell more efficiently. If you're taking glutathione, the intra-tumor glutathione is going to proliferate it. So that's another thing that during any kind of cancer state, glutathione shouldn't be in play.
Got it. So someone who's got elevated glutathione or elevated glutamate, we're going to take the
oxaloacetate.
Oxaloacetate.
Yeah, and they have a specific doctor version, higher dose. That's when you would want to take for like a cancer case.
Got it.
And like the phycocyanin from like the spirulina, like all these little players. And then if we're talking about cancer real quick, the ivermectins and fenbens. It's like pretty universally known, 3 mg per kg of ivermectin, about 1,000 milligrams of fenben. I think fenben's more of the complementary player. That's not really driving the apoptosis, more cutting off fuel supply. But they still both work super well. And then BAM15, PNC27, like I've talked about these for years. They are massive players to kill cancers.
Man, my dad's had cancer 3 times in the last 18 months. I need to get him some help. Maybe I'll put you on the protocol.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I just gotta help the guy, man. He's overweight. He's taking some peptides, but I'm always cautious with giving him shit. I'm like, I don't know, You said TB 500, TB 4. I'd love to differentiate there because some people think TB 500 is the same as TB 4. Clearly, seemingly not. You could tell me different, but I'd love to know where you see the greatest application there.
It's cool. So TB500 is that right tail. It's that right curve side of amino acids. So less amino acids. On paper, TB500 has less potential. It should have less potential to do everything than TB4 because thymosin beta 4 is the full molecular structure, all the amino acids, right? In application, I always keep going back to TB500. I don't see the same immune-based changes. I don't see the same changes to neonatal gene expression. I don't see the same recovery or soft articular cartilage changes. Like every time I would use TB4, it's almost like I have to use a full couple milligrams, or I have to really take it for long periods of time to do the same recovery I can get out of less TB500. And it doesn't make sense on paper. It shouldn't work like that. But in application, and I go outside of my practice. It's like, okay, this is my application with X amount of clients over X amount of years, right? And as I talk with other coaches, other providers, everyone's like, yeah, I see the same thing. And it's slowly starting, and you always have the outliers, obviously, but it seems like TB500 seemed to just work that much better. Makes no sense on paper. You can make some arguments, but I'd just be guessing.
Yeah. Could it be a stability, sourcing, quality molecule concern?
No,
Probably not.
Because I've tested that. If anything, you're along the good brainwave of how the amino acids and ligands bind to the receptors. Technically, the size of them from thymosin beta-4 might cause some of a potential. But even at that, we have bigger molecules we bind to all the time. So that doesn't even quite add up. I know that's the one theory people put out there. That's the only one I could say maybe. Like maybe there's something there from like a ligand binding aspect. But to me, I don't think that even holds up too much.
What's the one thing we haven't talked about that we should?
Paluvas.
Yeah.
5-finger toe shoes that everyone thinks is ugly. They are. They're super ugly.
Cares?
I love them, right?
Little,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I started wearing them mainly because I was hitting a wall. Neurologically, I was like, I have so much more in a day and I couldn't store any new memories. Like I couldn't. And I'm like, I pride myself in my neurological capacity. Like I want my goal in 2026 to be better than computer, better than AI. That's why I said Alex intelligence. Like as an inside joke, like that's literally a goal of mine. And I'm like, okay, what's my biggest rate limiting factor? I theorized probably pineal gland related, but the problem was I was getting enough stimulation from Epitalon and doing my own anti-synaptic pruning drills and things that wasn't a problem. So I traced it back, and if you look at pineal gland to one cortical region, to the opposite glute, to the opposite big toe, that was my problem. The big toe and the bottom layer of your feet has a mitochondrial water and fascial network that will then connect to the opposite glute, opposite cortical region, and then eventually communicate to the brain. That's how when our feet are on the ground outside earthing, that's the electron process that occurs. Right. Why you feel like you feel good, that's why. So I realized that and I'm like, okay, started actually looking at my foot mechanics and I didn't realize like my toes, they couldn't articulate. That was big problem number one. Big problem number two is I just had so much fascial buildup back there. So much, not trauma, but just, it was just tight, right? And the easiest way to overcome that is wear these, which force you into that articulated position and go outside and walk. And I would specifically, on our one street that I walk on, back hill, it's like this old dirt road. And on the left side, there's bricks, rocks, and the other side's like half paved. I walk on the bricks and the rocks to articulate and break open. And it still hurts to this day. But man, after, so 2 weeks, I was trashed. Mentally, I couldn't form a thought. I couldn't remember the word spoon. Like it was tough for 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, I'll get through this. I know I will. Adapted. And since then, that and then the ARC and a couple other things. But that's given me this next level of capacity to hold more memories and talk for 4 hours, 5 hours, like whatever it's been. Like that's been a big part of it. So from a neurological aspect, these toe shoes are massive. If you look at it from the athletic perspective, just the sheer ability to contract a fiber, your calf, your quad, your glute, your hamstring, anything lower limb related is going to massively improve. Right? So that's pretty cool. Better mind muscle
connection. That's probably why
my
calves were there.
Exactly, right? Like that makes sense. And then also not just that, but if you have better stability at the foot, then everything else upstream
100%.
up from that chain works. So then upper body grows better.
That's why I've been, like people think I just wore them. Like that's why I wore them. Because like I knew I was going to grow and it really made a difference.
Yep, exactly.
It really did, man. I love we're on the same.
So that's for the athlete, right? Now the longevity individual, right? Why would they care? The balance, the articulation. As you get older, we talked about the falling, being able to run and move in all these directions. If you are in your normal shoes, right, your feet can't adapt, they can't react, and they'll roll. So you roll, twist an ankle, fall, break your hip. Like that's the common thing that happens to most people. So we are trying to improve from the bottom up from the kinetic chain. So that's going to improve everyone in the longevity community's ability to continue to stay agile, upright, and
they're no less goofy than they were 20 years ago, but they're still functionally amazing.
Right. And that's why I told you before, I bought the white ones. So now if I take them on public, everyone sees.
Bro, if you saw the colors I wore back, like they're ridiculous. Ridiculous. Yeah, I'm sure there's photos of shit of me.
Right.
Yeah. And half of them times were like Velcro. I loved them.
Yeah.
I probably owned 50 pairs in my life, man. I was a weirdo. Full-fledged weirdo. Man, it's been an absolute honor. And I truly appreciate you coming out and making the time. So much knowledge and wisdom. We'll do it again soon. We'll talk about a million other things. I'd love to have you back. What do you want to tell the audience where they can find you? I'm sure you're going to get people reaching out.
Super simple. thepepcoach.com. Coaching is for everyone. Work with Gem Pop, longevity, athletes, like literally every dysfunctional gait you should imagine. So thepepcoach.com covers that. Do a lot of work in the high profile world with NFL players, NBA, NHL, all that kind of cool stuff. So if you know anyone that need help, obviously refer them my way. And then the school group, school.com/TPC Army. That's all the education. Do a seminar every week, about 4 videos on top of that, a live Q&A every other week. Protocols, like we have over 300 videos there now.
Yeah, I'm still in there, man. It's a fantastic community. I appreciate what you do, man. You're a legend, doing great stuff. And hopefully, man, this space continues to grow and continue helping people and continue to learn. So I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate having me
Thanks
on, man.
for being here, brother.